After 10 is the time, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the quote from the great canon of British literature that we have referred to most often on this programme over the years is probably this one. There was truth and there was untruth, and if you clung to the truth, even against the whole world, you were not mad. And at some mornings that feels even more urgent advice, doesn't it, than others, because I'm afraid we find ourselves, as we have several times over the years, probably don't need to list the examples, but, Brexit, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, austerity, all of the things that elements of our establishment, particularly in politics and the media, united to tell us were one way, turned out, not long after the event, to be completely the opposite. And all of the critics of all of those things turned out, in every single case, to be completely right. So you have to hold on to the truth, even against the whole world. Because that's the way you don't go mad. I had to give my head a bit of a wobble this morning when I saw the date on this statement that I'm about to read to you. I actually struggled to believe that it was 6 years ago to the day that a woman felt compelled to issue this plea. To the day. That's the bit that prompted me to give my head a wobble. The contents of the statement didn't, because I think I alluded to them yesterday. As a foundation and a family, we are aware of a number of posts using images of Lee and his murder in a divisive way to fuel arguments against the Black Lives Matter protests. Lee proudly served his country to protect the rights and freedoms of all members of this great melting pot of a nation. Seeing his image used to cause hate of any kind, especially for those exercising their freedoms in protest against this issue, hurts. We find these posts extremely heartbreaking and distressing, and in complete opposition to what Lee stood for. We ask you all to please stop using his image and memory in such posts, as he was a lover of all humanity, every race, gender, creed, sexuality and colour. So seeing such use of his name harms not only his family, but his legacy and memory. Our thoughts and support go out to George Floyd's friends and family at this tragic time. We wish you all love and peace at this time. And that was posted by Lynn Rigby on behalf of the Lee Rigby Foundation 6 years ago today. Plus ça flipping change. Eh? Plus ça change. Somebody murdered in horrific circumstances sees their own family issue a plea to racists to stop using their death to score political points or to spread further hatred, further division. And what do? They dance on the grave of the dead, and they completely ignore the wishes of the family. I don't think this is a morning for getting cross again. There was plenty of that yesterday. I think this is a morning for a slightly cooler reflection on what is happening in our country at the moment, and an attempt together to work out why it is happening, because that's the bit that confuses me, the why of it, not the what of it. That's fairly easy to track, but the absolute why of it, because it is obvious that people talking about unconscious bias or diversity training or anti-white racism or two-tier policing, it is obvious from even a cursory understanding of the facts that is not true. So we can automatically divide people who are doing those things into two categories. There are people who honestly think it is true, who we can possibly reach. And then there are people who know it isn't true, who I don't think we can. And that is where the parallels with all of those other recent events that I mentioned at the opening of the programme become absolutely irresistible, isn't it? Some people are persuadable by facts and evidence, and some people are not. So if you believe, for example, that police officers are going about their business in this country with inherent or carefully cultivated biases against white people, and you truly believe that without any evidence, but with very carefully cultivated ideas and phrases being poured into your ear. A tragic call yesterday from an 18-year-old lad who was adamant that unconscious bias was the reason why Henry Novak was dead, but he couldn't tell you what unconscious bias was, what unconscious bias training involved, or why training against unconscious bias was a bad thing. A headline, just to put in front of you at that point in the conversation about unconscious bias from today's Daily Telegraph. All NHS staff to have anti-Semitism training. Good. That's a good thing. Training people to be less racist, pointing out to people that some of the things they don't realise are racist, they are good things. Another headline for you from The Times. Stab victim arrest force, quotes, pressured, end quotes, by racism course. 1 in 5 police officers and staff feared saying the wrong thing after mandatory diversity training. Should we have a little stop and think what that might have involved? I mean, you could have gone with the other headline. 85% had absolutely no problem with it whatsoever, which I think is probably not true. 15% strikes me as very, very low for organisations of human beings that are routinely found to be institutionally racist, misogynistic and homophobic, most recently, of course, by Louise Casey. But what that means, of course, is that some people go into diversity training or unconscious bias training, and the Royal College of Police and others have told us that most coppers couldn't tell you what it involved or even remember whether they've done it or not. But some go into it and come out feeling very, very uncomfortable. Do you want to know a secret? Do you know who is most uncomfortable with having unconscious bias pointed out? Whether it's racism, homophobia or misogyny. Do you want to have a guess at who's most uncomfortable and most opposed to attempts to root that sort of thing out of our society? Yeah, well done. It's people who don't like having it pointed out that they're racist. And that is, not an opinion, that's counting. So, again, we see the British media almost unanimously this morning, with a few glorious exceptions, jumping on to this ludicrous Farage-flavoured bandwagon, pretending that there is either two-tier policing in this country or that attempts to make the police force less racist against people of colour, which all the statistics show us haven't worked very well, have somehow made the police force, which is almost unanimously dominated by white people, have somehow made the police force biased against people who are white, who are not of colour. And some of the headlines are frankly extraordinary. Inevitably, Alistair Heath in the Daily Telegraph, the man that told you Liz Truss was an economic genius, that Boris Johnson was better than sliced bread, that Brexit was going to solve all of your ills and make you rich. He writes, anti-white racism is real, and there'll be more Henry Novaks until it's crushed. Okay. Brendan O'Neill in The Spectator. Why can we rage against George Floyd's death but not Henry Novak's? Well, I think it's probably a rhetorical question, because I've seen plenty of raging against Henry Novak's death, although much of it is built on misapprehensions and misunderstandings, which are only sustainable if you ignore the facts of the case, the comments of the judge, the report of the pathologist, and the pleas and the explanations of the family. So by all means, rage away about it. But just acknowledge, please, that you're ignoring the judge, you're ignoring Henry's family, you're ignoring the pathologist's report, and you're ignoring the lived reality of police officers who've had, quotes, unconscious bias training. And then The Times, Henry Novak and the corrosive effect of DEI on policing. So, I mentioned to you yesterday the judge's comments. I suggested to you that you should read them, and I don't think that was necessarily... I mean, I'm going to sound a bit paternalistic now, so I take it as you will. But I should have warned you, I think, possibly even a trigger warning. I should have warned you that elements of the judge's report are unbearable. That the immediate aftermath of Henry's stabbing being particularly sick and gross, it's easy, and indeed not something I'm minded to resist, to conjure up bilious hatred of the man responsible. But of course, the other thing that comes out in the judge's comments is that it was a horrible tragedy, a consequence of the fickle finger of fate pointing at an entirely innocent boy on an evening in Southampton. And the judge's comments make that absolutely clear. I shared them with you yesterday, but I think it's probably worth sharing some of them with you again tonight. I beg your pardon, today. Because so many people are deliberately ignoring them. Here's what happened, right? One man stabbed another man. And then the killer's brother phoned the police to report a racial attack. That means that the call handler informing the police and the police attending the scene believed that they were attending the scene where the two men who had reported the attack were the victims, and the man that they had reported was the perpetrator. They arrived at the scene and they did something which I suspect the inquiry will find they shouldn't have done. They handcuffed Henry Novak, although, as the judge reported, this is a well-known trope. It is the experience of the criminal courts. I'm reading the judge's comments now because somebody has to, that sometimes someone arrested and handcuffed will feign injury in the hope that they may be released. These police officers were faced with having to make quick decisions in pressurised circumstances about the best way to act. I think it will find, the inquiry, that he shouldn't have been handcuffed, that was a regrettable mistake made in the heat of the moment, and some people will, of course, claim that it was because he was white. But to do that, you have to completely ignore the absolutely unavoidable reality of people of colour being handcuffed in similar circumstances on countless occasions, some of whom even ended up dead. So the judge has told us what happened. He also referenced the pathologist's report, which, again, I can't quite believe that the kind of coverage that I just alluded to a moment ago has somehow managed to completely and utterly ignore the pathologist's report, because one of the things that I think even people who haven't bought into the propaganda and the hideous decision to completely ignore the wishes, the expressed wishes of Henry Novak's family, even people who haven't bought into that may be surprised to discover that there was no way the poor boy could have lived. The pathologist Amanda Jeffrey found over 2 pints of blood at the scene. She said that no emergency medical treatment would have permitted access to the bleeding vein. In simple terms, he would not have survived, however quickly he received first aid, CPR, or expert medical treatment. So you've decided to ignore the judge, who has explained that when the police arrived, it was entirely understandable due to Henry's clothing and the time of night that they wouldn't have noticed all of the blood on him, and they were under the impression that they were responding to a crime reported by victims. It took them, I think, less than 3 minutes, possibly less than a minute, to establish that the facts were actually the other way round and to arrest the perpetrator, who will happily rot in jail, hopefully rot in jail for the rest of his life. His brother and his father still face trial for other offences. That's your two-tier policing for you right there. So you've decided to completely ignore the judge and his detailed, careful explanations. You've decided to completely ignore the pathologist and her expert insistence that the poor man could not have survived, however quickly he received first aid, CPR, or expert medical treatment. You've decided to completely ignore the fact that so-called anti-racism policies had absolutely nothing to do with the treatment of Henry Novak, not least because, although politicians may choose to describe the phraseology as clumsy, all it really means is that, as is explained by one journalist today, someone who is Jewish may need reassurance that police are taking a claim of criminal damage seriously and that hate will be considered as a motive. So if I get attacked in the street, or if, for example, somebody were to throw bacon at me in the street, I would expect to be treated differently from a Muslim or a Jew. Right? You understand why, yeah? If I was black and you were stopping and searching me, I would expect these days to have it proved to me that you weren't stopping me because I was black, which has happened in this country for years, but you were stopping me because you had reasonable grounds to suspect that I had committed a crime. Those are what these guidelines are in place to do. This is not hard to understand. And if you don't currently understand it, it is not hard to find the help that you need to establish this. Ministers accept the document was not even sent to officers to act on, but regardless, it gives the wrong impression. But we return to those headlines. Anti-white racism is real, and there'll be more Henry Novaks until it's crushed. How is Henry Novak a victim of anti-white racism if he would have died regardless of what happened at the scene of the crime? It's a question you can put to Alistair Heath if you ever have the misfortune of meeting him. Or perhaps you could just ask him why he hasn't bothered to read the judge's sentencing or indeed the pathologist's report. Henry Novak and the corrosive effect of DEI on policing, reports the Times, without telling you what that DEI... Usually what they get is some retired copper who's still bitter about the circumstances in which they left the force, insisting that these days everybody's woke. I'll tell you what is a story: the underfunding and the collapse in morale that unfolded in the police service under 14 years of Tory rule and George Osborne's austerity. But these papers can't tell you about that because, of course, they were cheering it from the rafters for the entire duration of that decade and a half. And then you have why can't we rage? I mean, the stupidest headline of all, inevitably, in the Spectator magazine. Why can we rage against George Floyd's death but not Henry Novak's? Well, I suppose because Henry Novak wasn't killed by the police, and Henry Novak's perpetrator has been jailed as a consequence of police actions, not despite police actions, which is the biggest difference between George Floyd. I mean, what's the point of explaining this? Because, of course, some people are determined not to see the evidence with their own eyes and ears. Some people are determined not to know. They are determined to tell their readers, their listeners, their viewers lies. Absolute lies. This idea that the police turned up and didn't do the inquiries that they should have done because they were worried about the ethnicities of the perpetrator. You know where that takes you logically. The natural culmination of that line of thought. If you ring up to report a burglary later today, yeah, the first thing the police should do when they turn up at your house is establish that you're not actually the burglar. We're going to the house. We're going to 24 Acacia Avenue. We've had a report of a burglary. Who handed in the report? Oh, James O'Brien did. Okay. Hello, sir. What's your name? James O'Brien. I'm just going to ask you to empty your pockets. Actually, I'm just going to ask you to prove that you're not the burglar. That's what you're hearing already. This idea that you turn up and you believe nothing or ask everything. Someone reports a crime. The first person you go to in trying to find out what's gone on is the person that reported the crime. I think, and this is something I say carefully, I think what we're seeing here is an outpouring of rage that the police didn't turn up at the scene of this crime and automatically presume that the brown people were the criminals and the liars and the white person was the innocent victim. I think it's that simple. I think all of these people writing all of these headlines, making all of these claims, ignoring all of these facts, I think they just hate the fact that the police force no longer turn up at the scene of the crime and treat the ethnic minority member of our population as the wrong one. I think that's my Occam's razor, because the question I've got for you this morning is that when the evidence is so incontrovertible that this has nothing to do with race, when the family of the murdered boy have pleaded with you to not bring racism into it, just like Lee Rigby's mother has pleaded with you to leave her son out of your racist provocations, just as Henry Novak's father begged the establishment not to do precisely what Nigel Farage subsequently did, and all of these journalists choose to ignore Henry's family, they choose to ignore the trial judge, they choose to ignore the actual pathologist, they choose to ignore all of the available evidence about the efficacy or impact of so-called diversity training, and I want you to tell me why. Why are they doing it? Not Farage. We know why he does the things that he does. But why are they doing it? Why are people who do what I do for a living failing utterly to read the most simple accounts of what actually happened and reaching instead for ludicrous claims about anti-white bias in the police? One thing I didn't know, and I'm not going to apologise for this because you've got to look after your own mental health, and I don't go on the sewer that is much social media these days. Elon Musk inevitably weighing in on the platform that he owns yesterday. One thing I didn't know was how carefully the ground had been seeded for a moment like this, how desperately some elements would have been waiting for a moment like this where they could just push the facts to the sidelines and go in on the carefully cultivated angers and hatreds. So why are they doing it? Why are people completely ignoring the judge, the murdered man's family, and the pathologist when they try and turn this into a conversation about race, about two-tier policing, or about unconscious bias trait? Why are they doing it? 0345 6060 973. I'm going to say that again because it's a very specific question. Why are people ignoring the judge, ignoring the coroner, and ignoring the pathologist, and ignoring Henry Novak's family in exactly the same way that they ignored Lee Rigby's mother? Why are they doing it? What do they want? Is my question for you this morning. What do they want? 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
What do they want? What do these people want when they choose to ignore Henry Novak's father, the judge in the trial of Henry Novak's murderer, the events of the evening of Henry Novak's death, the report of the pathologist who attended the scene of Henry Novak's killing, and the easily available evidence of the reality and impact of so-called unconscious bias or diversity training. What do they actually want? I didn't ask that question soon enough with regard to some of the other things that are going on. And I'm just going to play you one more clip, because I just actually again had to give my head a wobble. I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing when the man who has, and credit where it's due, has managed to turn the death of Henry Novak categorically and clearly against the heartfelt wishes of his family into a massive political bonfire that we are compelled to take part in, because if you don't, you leave the stage clear for the arsonists. So I had to give my head a wobble when I heard the man who is responsible for turning this into a festival of lies, exaggerations and racism. Credit where it's due, but I couldn't quite believe my ears when I heard him responding to another murder in this country just a few short years ago.
Counterproductive. And there is a danger that in the debate about this abduction and murder, and more broadly, how safe women are on the streets, all of which is a valid debate. There's a danger we go way too far in our criticism of men and broaden this out from bad people to men as a group.
So Sarah Everard gets murdered, and Nigel Farage urges people not to broaden it out to men getting murdered. Henry Novak gets murdered, and Nigel Farage immediately broadens it out to all men that look like the murderer. He even, I think, in that clip, discouraged protest. I don't know if it's even worth asking why his response to the murder of a white woman by a white man would be so different. Because the misogyny, as we know, is a handmaiden of racism. But why would his response to the murder of a white woman by a white policeman be all mealy-mouthed and equable when a white man is murdered by a brown man and the police at the scene could be construed as having, well, I think they did behave badly in the context of the handcuffing, but suddenly they're racists. What on earth is that man on? Listen to this again. This is after Sarah Everard was abducted and murdered by a serving, and I'm going to have to say white, because that's what much of this conversation has been turned into by Nigel Farage, by a serving white policeman.
Counterproductive. And there is a danger that in the debate about this abduction and murder, and more broadly, how safe women are on the streets, all of which is a valid debate. There's a danger we go way too far in our criticism of men and broaden this out from bad people to men as a group.
Is he worried that he might be on the hook for it? If we're going to go after all white men with slightly misogynistic leanings, then goodness me, I might be getting a knock on my door soon. Or is there something else going on here? So ignore that. Well, don't ignore it. Take it on board next time you hear him claiming that there should be pure cold rage about this crime. But just have a look for me, if you would, at what they want. What do these people want when they absolutely ignore the judge, the facts, the pathologist, and the family? I don't know why they're doing it, except the possibility that they want to live in a world like the 1960s. They want to live in a world where if you turn up at the scene of a crime, you're a black person who's reported it, you're the one that is automatically treated like a criminal. You might accidentally fall downstairs in the police station. You might get murdered on the streets of South London, and then the incompetence and baked-in racism of the police will mean that the people seen at the scene of your crime go unpunished for decades, and in 4 of their cases, unpunished forever. What do they want? What do they actually want? It's a variation of the question of why are they doing this, and part of the answer to that will be to sell papers and to get clicks, but you don't need me to remind you where you need to go to find proof that you can be on the side of the facts and the truth and decency and still draw in massive numbers and massive audiences. Why are they doing it? Maybe is easy to answer, but what do they want the end game to be? What's the aim of these lies, these embellishments, these exaggerations, and these hideous, heinous, unforgivable decisions to ignore the judge, to ignore the pathologist, and to ignore Henry Novak's family? What do they want? Here's Dominic Ellis with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
33 is the time. I mean, it is... I've talked enough, but it would be comical if it wasn't so tragic that we have somehow woken up in 2026 in a country still riven with racism in our police forces, because all of the inquiries tell us that. And the people that brought you Brexit, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, austerity and Donald Trump are claiming that it's all biased against white people. It would be funny if it wasn't so horrible. And the upshot of it, of course, will be more violence. At least that's what they're hoping. Why? What do they want? How does it end in their weird fever dreams? How did any of those things end in their weird fever dreams? But how does this one end? Elia is in Enfield. Elia, what would you like to say?
I don't think this is the whole answer to your question.
Of course.
But I think part of the answer is that when I first heard this story, the first thing that stuck out to me was the racial element, the fact that they had lied, the perpetrators had lied about being racially attacked. And I knew straight away that's the element of the story that they're going to jump on, the media.
Did you?
And yeah, I did. As soon as I heard it, I knew if there was going to be any report about it, I knew that was the people who want to make that the element of the story they find most important. They're going to seize that. And once you've got that, your story's written. Like, you know what you're going to say. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. You've got your answer, basically, or you've got your story. And then
So that's the business model then, which for good or for ill is as old as the hills. That I mean, things have got measurably worse over the last 10 years. But the idea that you do a little bit of victim narrative, you're the real victims here. It's awful being white in this country. It just puts bums on seats.
In a way, yeah. I think some people genuinely believe that, and it's like
clearly
it proves your point.
And I don't think we can reach them. I don't think they can be persuaded otherwise, really. As I said yesterday.
Even in the media, in the media they believe that. I think some people do anyway. I think so, maybe.
Well, I work in the media, and I watch some people quite closely when they end up banging these drums and going down. Their Brexit will be brilliant. Boris Johnson is amazing. Liz Truss is a genius. Donald Trump's a stand-up guy. Austerity is great fun. And the police officers in this case did handcuffed Henry Novak and didn't believe him because he was white. And it's all exactly the same people. I don't think anybody in one of those groups isn't in all of the other groups as well, right? And I mean, the only defence I could offer up is I don't know whether they believe or don't believe it. I just don't think they think about things. I think they know what a front page looks like on The Sun the day after Brexit. They started blaming it all on there being too many Polish shops. And then when someone of Polish heritage gets murdered by a brown person, then they just flip the table over and come at it from an entirely different angle. The only thing that it has in common is that they're telling their readers, their listeners and their viewers, here's someone for you to hate and get angry about. I can hate that murderer, whatever colour he is. I don't need to bring his race into it. And I can feel sorry for a victim, whatever colour they are. I don't need to bring their race into it, unless it's demonstrably, provably the case that he's died because of his colour. And in this case, the opposite is true. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether they believe it or not, actually. I think often they just don't think about it.
It's true, because I think if I wanted to, I could write an article with that narrative. It's easy.
Yeah.
As soon as you see it, it's easy to write. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense. I think the parallels they draw with things like George Floyd, it's almost like it's so opposite that you can make the comparison in some warped logical way.
But why would you want to? So somebody watches the George Floyd saga unfold, and then they hear the details of the Henry Novak murder, and you're talking about a man murdered by police whose murder would never have been properly reported or justice achieved if it wasn't for the fact that a member of the public there was filming it. And then you're looking at a man murdered by a civilian who was arrested at the scene by the police, and the footage of the police's own mistakes was then released by the actual police. And people see a parallel? So people in The Spectator want to know why you can't rage about the bloke who was murdered by a civilian criminal in the same way that you raged about the bloke who was murdered by a police officer. You're right, you can't stop to think about it too much, can you? Because if you did, you'd realise what an absolute idiot you are.
Yeah, it's the same logic, if you base it on the same theory that you see something easy to write about and you write it, that's almost, it's easy money, really. Like, you see something easy, you write about it, you don't need to think about it, and then when judges' comments and things come out, you've got the option of either admitting you've made a mistake, which they're not going to do, or just ignoring it.
Or just crack on to the next thing, wait for the next disaster to unfold, and then pick somebody to tell your readers and your listeners to hate in that context. So really, I mean, by all means, hate the perpetrator in this crime, I do, but to somehow start hating the police and encouraging people to riot outside police stations. You don't have to answer this question because it only just popped into my head, but what do you think Nigel Farage would have done if Sarah Everard had been killed by someone who wasn't a white police officer? Do you think he would have been encouraging people not to generalise about other human beings and urging them not to be public in their protests?
She was killed by somebody who wasn't white.
Yeah. No. Yeah, because she was killed by a white police officer, and he told everyone to calm down and don't blame anybody for the crime except the man who did it. And whatever you do, don't start protesting or taking out your anger on men or the police.
It depends on what he wanted at that moment. I think at the moment he's obviously got his head set on boosting a reform vote. I think if he was writing an article...
He thinks this is the way to do it. He thinks this is the way to do it.
If he was a newspaper editor and he was writing, or his job was to write articles, he'd write an article about it. But because right now he can use it as political capital, it's almost like you have to... It's impossible to do if you've got a conscience, but to look at it from their perspective of, I guess, like, completely remove the human element from it and...
Yeah. I mean, you may have killed my phone in stone dead, Elia. I do this a lot. I overthink things. I presume that people who do at least what I do for a living will think about things a little bit, like read the coroner, read the pathologist's comments, read the judge's sentencing, listen to the family. But maybe I'm just a bit of an idiot myself. I mean, have a look at the last 50 years of the British media from the moment Rupert Murdoch bought the News of the World. It's been clear that the best business model is just to feed people absolute hate-filled bile and encourage them to direct it at whichever target you've identified today. Because don't forget, 10 years ago, almost to the day, it was people with Polish names. The front page of The Sun was saying, good, we voted Brexit, get out of our country. Too many Polish shops. So it doesn't actually, there's not even a veneer of logic to the hatred. Except that it will never be directed at middle-aged, middle-class white men, even if they are police officers, even if one of their number, a serving police officer, has murdered a white woman. I find those Everard comments of Farage's, even by his standards, in the context of what he's done this week, breathtaking. But none of the people who he agrees to be interviewed by will be asking him about them anytime soon. Of that, I can assure you. Thank you, Elia. Ian's in Stafford. Ian, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I think it's the answer's in two parts, maybe, but it all links back down to the attention economy, really. You know, first part, why are your colleagues doing it? Well, I think you're modest enough to know that not everybody wants to listen to you, or people like you, or people like Sheila who've got some, rational understanding of things. They want to listen to people who are dramatists, who shout down the microphone, who
we'll do a bit of shouting, and you put me in a very uncomfortable position, Ian, because I've got the biggest audience.
Well, exactly, but...
Oh, no. There it goes. You've spoilt my moment in the sun there with the quality of your phone line. We may get you back. I mean, it's a question, isn't it? What are these people doing, whether they work here or not? Why are they ignoring the judge? Why are they ignoring the family of Henry Novak? Why are they ignoring the pathologist? Why are they claiming that something that doesn't exist exists? Why are they living in a country where endemic racism in the police service has been identified, evidenced and proven time and time again, from Macpherson to Casey, and they're pretending that the exact opposite is true? Oh yes, there is racism, there is two-tier policing, but it's directed at white people. And maybe I am overthinking it. Maybe there isn't an answer to the question of what do they want. They don't care. They just want fires today and jam tomorrow. I think we've got Ian's phone line up. Stay where you are, Kit. I'll be with you imminently. So move on, if you would, to the question of what they want.
Yeah, so I think it was in two parts. Firstly, they're feeding their customer base and, attention economy, getting the clicks and making sure they're getting their advertising revenue. But why do the customers want it? Yeah. I think it's because a certain amount of, the population and people like to live or experience life and be part of something that's achieved through an easy argument that doesn't require logical thinking.
And they like to feel like victims. Yes.
Yeah. It's easier to feel like a victim than it is to actually sit think, rationalise and understand an argument, something like this, which, is very complex, something
it's
like
not,
Israel
it's
and
not that complex.
Very complex.
It's not that complex. I mean, this case isn't that complex.
Well,
it's
no,
all
this
there
case
in the
isn't that
judge's
complex,
report. It's
but-
all there in what the pathologist said. It's all there in what Mark Novak said after sitting in court every day of the trial.
This isn't complex if you take the time and the effort to go and find that information. And I think that's the issue. It's that
how do you put
easily able to relate to those things.
How do you put Henry's dad on mute? How does that work?
Well, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous when I think the only person who could carry the weight, the credence, and have the emotional investment to ask or direct how people should behave in this instance is just totally ignored.
Yeah. And as we often say on the programme, the lie can be halfway around the world before the truth has got its trousers on. I mean, another thing that is stressed by both the judge and by Henry Novak's father is that the murder itself had absolutely nothing to do with race. It was an altercation in the street between two young men. At no point in any of, and it was filmed, so everybody knows what the run up to it was. So I get a couple of messages. Here's one: I think it's important to say that Henry was killed by a racist. It's important to say that is absolute hokum. Even if it were true, it's utterly unevidenced and unproved, and not even claimed by anybody involved in the case, including the actual prosecution. Jason, the actual prosecution. And the reason for that is that they were filming each other up until the moment of impact, so you can identify without even a scintilla of doubt what happened in the immediate run-up to the crime, to the hideous crime committed, just for the avoidance of doubt, by absolute scum. The more you read that judge's report, the easier it is to understand why some people can be persuaded to supporting the death penalty for certain crimes. Make no mistake, we are flesh and blood. We balk at this, but I don't balk at it more because he's brown. And that, I think, is part of what they want, isn't it? That's why they hated the George Floyd stuff. That's why Stephen Lawrence's murder went unpunished for so long. They just hate the fact that we are being encouraged as a society to treat people of colour with more dignity than we used to treat them differently from how we used to treat them differently from how we treat each other. Funny that. I got a horrible story for you next, and it ties in with the increasing case for the government finally doing something about Elon Musk's hideous platform, Twitter. A Labour MP has decided to sue his company over fake sexualised images, because don't forget that Elon Musk makes money, or his platform makes money, out of images of child sexual abuse, even as he uses his power and his account to support liars, bigots and grifters who claim that they want to protect our women by providing a platform for people to publicise events that lead to riots outside repurposed hotels and police stations that it subsequently turns out are attended by serial domestic abusers. Yeah, they're the people that some of these clowns are empowering to protect your women. And actually, here's another one of those people that is insisting that we protect our women by suggesting that when one of our women is killed, we shouldn't blame men.
Counterproductive. And there is a danger that in the debate about this abduction and murder, and more broadly, how safe women are on the streets, all of which is a valid debate, there's a danger we go way too far in our criticism of men and broaden this out from bad people to men as a group.
He actually wrote, we must not allow the tragic murder of a young woman turn into attacks on men and attacks on the police. But we absolutely must allow the tragic murder of a young man turn into attacks on anybody the same colour as the killer and the police. I mean, I know I'll never get bored of this. I know how much it annoys a small element of my audience, but I want you to know what you're voting for. I don't want you to be able to pretend that you don't know. So I'm always going to show it to you, and you're always going to hate me, because what you see is a mirror. You see a reflection. I don't care that he responded to Sarah Everard's murder in a completely different way from the way he responded to Henry. And I certainly don't want to think about why that might be, because he's feeding me. He's feeding me, and I want more. Or why members of the media join in, maybe, as Elia has pointed out, isn't such a big mystery as I thought it was at 10 o'clock this morning. After this break, Jessa Sato, who is taking legal action against Elon Musk's company after saying its Grok tool helped a user produce fake sexualised pictures of her, will be telling me why she's doing what she's doing.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10:51 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Now, you will be aware, if you're kind enough to listen to this programme on anything close to a regular basis, that I removed myself from the sewer that is Twitter some time ago, some years ago, in fact. I was quite an early adopter of that decision, and I thought it would be difficult because I'd built up a huge following over the years, but it was surprisingly easy. And it was as a consequence of Elon Musk's ownership and what he was doing to the site. So I'm not entirely aware of just how disgusting it has become until either you tell me or some people, not always helpfully, clip things from there and put it on my other platforms. But some stories just stop you in your tracks. And the story of an MP, an elected British member of Parliament, feeling that she has little choice but to take legal action against Elon Musk's company because of fake sexualised images of her being both created and disseminated, sounds like something out of a rather poor dystopian novel, but it isn't. It's the lived experience of Jessa Sato, who joins me now. I suppose, Jess, and I don't really want to, I have to ask what exactly was done?
Oh, thank you. This is an issue that's affected many, many thousands of women and disgustingly children, which I spoke up as an MP about in January when it became very clear that millions of images were being uploaded without consent and non-consensual sexualised imagery was being created through Grok by users. As a result, I then became the target, and Grok created images of me in a bikini.
But people ask, Grok, let's work on the presumption that I'm a complete idiot, Jess, which should be easy to do. People have to ask Grok to do this.
That's right. So Grok was integrated with the X platform. So you could just at Grok and say, at Grok, put this woman in a bikini, and it would just create the image. And what many users did then, of course, was share that image back with the person whose picture had been taken without consent and manipulated. And that's what happened to me. I then went on the BBC to say that this had been happening to me, and somebody created a video of me being surrounded by a group of men. I was chloroformed, I fainted, and then my skirts were lifted up as if to prepare for a sexual assault.
Obviously, I'm sorry that you've had to go through this. What recourse did you discover that you had when that happened, or perhaps even when the first activities happened? What did you discover? Because, many people listening would think, well, there's a button you can press or a number you can call and it would be taken down immediately and apologies and the people responsible would be punished. And Twitter was a bit like that in the old days, but I don't think it's like that now.
No, that is not what happened. I did report as many of these pictures that I could, but X did not take them down. And so a friend suggested that I contact a lawyer to ask whether they might be able to do that for me. And yes, it did turn out that a lawyer's letter did work, and they did then eventually take these down. But in the process, my lawyer said, we think that you actually might have a case. Would you like to look at it? And because I had been inundated by many, many women getting in touch with me, telling me about their experiences, some of which are much, much worse than mine. We're talking about real deepfake pornography. I thought, well, maybe we could make this work. Maybe we could see if under our current law, we do have rights to privacy and data protection. And let's see whether we can actually hold these organisations to account. Because at the moment, they act with impunity because, of course, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. So who could take him on legally, particularly where we're at the frontiers, I guess, of AI and technology? And it felt to me I wanted to bring voice to those women and indeed families of children whose images has been manipulated into sexual imagery too. And that's why I've taken this case.
They said that they dealt with it a few months ago, didn't they? They said it was going to change the system to allow only paying customers to produce such imagery, which is quite an extraordinary response to some of the things that you've described. And then later they claimed that they'd entirely stopped Grok from editing pictures of real people to show them in revealing clothes. Do you know whether or not that's true?
Don't think we do entirely know that's true, but they certainly can still create bikini pictures because they're not considered to be intimate imagery. We know that they can still create things like bullet holes in women, bruising. You can take anybody's picture and manipulate it in a violent way, in a misogynistic way. And I've already received, since I've launched my case, many pictures of me in a bikini. I don't know whether they've been created by Grok. I've not had the time to do that investigation. But I think the other part of this is because it's integrated with social media, unlike some of the other AI platforms, this material can spread so quickly, and it becomes an almost like a game for some men who seem to think that they're entitled to do this to women that they've never met. And I think it's important that as a society we have a conversation about whether this is the sort of world that we want to live in, because nobody would be able to walk up to me in a street, strip me off and put me in a bikini. But somehow it's become normalised. That's just fair game online. And we do need some sort of new kind of boundaries to protect women and children, because, of course, the end result of this is that women will start to leave these platforms. And I absolutely understand why many women have left X. You said that you did it early on, because nobody wants to end up finding out that their image, possibly their professional profile image, or just they're just ordinary person who wants to follow what's going on, and suddenly their face is part of deepfake pornography. Like, this is not right, and we need to stop it.
Do you think the government should still be on there, using it as a platform to reach the public, even as the owner does his level best to create civil war in this country and does nothing as events like the ones you've been subjected to unfold, often, of course, in the lives of people who don't have recourse to the law and couldn't even afford to send a legal letter, never mind pursue a case like yours, or indeed like the case being pursued by the mother of one of Elon Musk's children in New York State, Ashley St. Clair, who also alleges explicit images were generated of her, including one in which she was underage. I mean, it struck me for some time, Jess, that the government should have been off that platform ages ago.
That's an issue for the government in relation to my.
No, I won't
in
press
relation
you on
to
that.
me.
Yes.
I am still on it,
yes.
And the reason I'm still on it is because I do not want to be pushed out. I am an elected representative, and it is important to me that my constituents, wherever they choose to go, can contact me on platforms that are available to them. I'd prefer not to be on it. Yeah. I'll be honest with you, but I think actually there's a principle here of my own freedom of speech that I shouldn't have to be so fearful that people will manipulate my image into something that is misogynistic. We're not talking about parody here. We're not talking about satire. Of course, public figures, there's a higher threshold for images that should be created of us. I totally get that. What I'm talking about is the dedicated use of this technology, AI technology, to demean and humiliate and degrade and thereby silence women, because we simply cannot put up with it day after day. And I do know that many of my colleagues have come off X, and I do not, that's absolutely the right thing for them to do. For me personally, I'm staying on it because I'm sort of doing it as a protest almost, which is I shouldn't be pushed off these platforms.
No, I understand that. Do we have any idea of how this case is going to unfold? Do we know what the next chapter is in the story?
So, I don't know the legal niceties, I'm afraid. That's in the hands of my lawyers. It will obviously be up to XAI and the steps that they decide to take. Civil cases can take quite a long time in the court, so I'm prepared for this to be part of the long haul. In the time being, I am hoping that more victims will come forward who've had their images manipulated by Gwok. You described an example of what's happening in the US, but we know there are thousands of women, and indeed, sadly, some children whose images were manipulated in that period of December, January, and either I want them to sort of seek help from the legal team to get those images taken down, or potentially to join the legal case if they feel they're able to.
Is there anywhere people can go to find out more about it?
Yes, there is a page on AWO, which is the solicitor's website, where they can look at the detail and email through.
Well, I shall provide a link to that on my social media, Jess, although obviously not on X or Twitter. But I completely respect your reasons for still being there. Jess Assato, the Labour MP for Lowestoft, and as she points out, it's not her job to regulate this stuff, it's her boss's. Elon Musk is essentially a malign foreign actor trying to interfere in British democracy, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, he is the owner of technology that allows hideous things like that to happen. And on the other hand, if you will allow three hands in this case, the platform last night was publishing details, names, even addresses of people claimed to be the police officers responsible for the treatment of Henry Novak on the night that he died, and they got the wrong people, which makes it awful. But even if they'd got the right people, it would have been awful. And I don't imagine that leads to any sanction. In fact, I don't know, but I would not be staggered into silence, perish the thought, if the people disseminating that stuff get financially rewarded by the way that platform now works, even as they endanger all people involved would be completely innocent, including the police officers that were there that night. But police officers who had absolutely nothing to do with it, ex-police officers who had absolutely nothing to do with it. There's a few quid to be made from painting targets on their doors and indeed on their backs. So whose job is it to stop them? It's 11:03.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Minutes after 11 is the time. I don't know what the word is. It's not. I don't think it's ironic, but it is notable that while the world rages about claims that police receive anti-racism training that somehow makes them racist. Yeah, me neither. But as the world rages about police receiving anti-racism training that somehow makes them racist, it is reported today that all NHS staff will have anti-racist training, even more than they have already. They will have content on anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hostility worked into the mandatory equality, diversity and human rights training that they already receive. I'd be interested to watch a needle of people's consciousness or conscience. The people who are furious about the police receiving anti-racism training and somehow persuading themselves that it's made them racist against white people. And to see where that needle is. What do you feel about the police receiving anti-racism training? And then revealing that NHS staff are to have anti-Semitism training. Does the needle go even higher? I mean, what? That's outrageous. That's going to make everybody biased against people who aren't Jewish or people who aren't Muslim. You see the madness that we're caught up in now when you allow people like Nigel Farage to speak unchallenged and to make their points without being reminded of the last time they made the polar opposite point. You end up in an absolute mess. An absolute mess. All NHS staff to have anti-Semitism training. Good. All police have anti-racism training. It's turning them all racist. I'm not exaggerating, am I? This is insane that these stories would be around on the same day. You can see why most newspapers have elected to ignore that element of Lord Mann's report and focus instead upon badges. And I'm going to focus on badges as well because I think it's a really interesting issue. But I'm not going to focus on the badges until we have established how insane it is that the world is going mad about the idea of the police receiving anti-racism training, which, by the way, is inadequate and ineffective according to almost all of the independent assessments. And the same bits of the world that are going mad will, I suspect, in the spirit of a stopped clock, they will rightly welcome news that NHS staff are to receive anti-Semitism training and content on anti-Muslim hostility. Trust chief executives and chairmen will also be required to complete anti-racism training, specifically including anti-Semitism within the next 6 months. Do you think the people that put the Daily Telegraph together realise, as they're pasting the pages, how mad it is to have anti-racism training being the worst thing imaginable in the world on page 14 and anti-racism training being wonderful and overdue in the NHS? Do you think they even notice how mad this is? How insulting it is to their readers to think that they're too stupid? Well, no. How correctly they preempt the sensibilities of their readers by presuming that they're too stupid to notice the contradiction. It's incredible. Anti-racism training is a good thing. Obviously, because racism is a bad thing. The only people who've got a problem with anti-racism training are people who think racism is a good thing, which is why Nigel Farage can't keep his grubby little fingers out of stories like this, but has absolutely nothing to say about the murder of Sarah Everard, except why can't we all just calm down? And please don't blame men for the actions of that man, but blame all immigrants for the action of that man over there who's not an immigrant but looks like he might be. But I want to have a slightly different phone in now, with your help. I'd actually like the conversation about badges, and I like the suggestion that NHS staff will not be allowed to wear any. So I don't know whether it's helpful for the BBC to open their reporting with Palestinian badges. I suspect it's a reasonable position to adopt, because I suspect that at the moment symbols demonstrating solidarity with Palestinian people are more commonplace and more prevalent in hospitals than any other expressions of support or allegiance. And I don't think, unless, well, listen, the first thing that you may want to try to do is persuade me that the pro-Palestinian badge should be treated differently from all badges, because this is not a phone-in about pro-Palestinian symbols. This is a phone-in about expressions of support or badges of allegiance. And I would include in that not just political causes, but also religious causes. Do you know, very, very early on, and I wish I'd clocked at the time how significant it was, 2 stories come back and sort of slap me around the back of the head on a regular basis. One of them I did spot pretty early that it was pointing a finger to the road ahead. That was Winterval in Birmingham. I looked into it when I was writing my first book, How to Be Right, and I couldn't quite believe the facts could be so at odds with the coverage, with the reports, up to and including, I think, the Archbishop of Birmingham. So there was this council worker, as a bloke who worked for the council in Birmingham in, I think, the early 1980s. I name him in the book in a happy way and say, God blimey, I bet he didn't have any idea what he was unleashing when he worked out that Birmingham Council could save a ton of money if they didn't take down the lights in between festivals. So I can't remember what they were celebrating, but celebrating. It was the other lot that were salivating. So Christmas was up there. I think Diwali was up there. Eid wouldn't have been up there, would it? But there were various festivals that were all coming around the same time. And in Birmingham, they used to take the kind of celebrations down and then put them up again. And this bloke worked out they could save quite a lot of money by just leaving them up for the duration. And obviously, if you're leaving them up for the duration of, say, a 3-month period, then you can't call it Christmas if they're going up in October any more than you could. Well, you don't need me to explain how months work, although the right-wing media at the time did, because they called it Winterval, so it would cover the entire period that the lights were on the lampposts. God, they were happier times, weren't they, when we had lights on lampposts instead of tatty nylon flags that had been put up by racists. Anyway, everyone went mad. Everyone claimed they were abolishing Christmas and that you can't say Happy Christmas in this country anymore without being arrested. And that was 20, 30, 40 years, 30 years ago. Anyway, early doors. And I spotted quite early on in this job that was pointing the way that today leads us all the way to the horrible murder that we've been discussing all week. Well, rather the media reaction to it. Tell someone that Christmas has been cancelled and you can be fairly confident they won't bother to check before they start shouting. And that happened and still gets referred to. I still see it every now and again. It's an insane story. The truth is out there, as they used to say on the X-Files. And I know that because I bloody wrote it. The truth is out there. And yet every now and then you'll still see a story saying, oh, it's just like Winterval, or this madness started in Birmingham in 19-something. And the other story that I don't think it was quite as significant a signpost regarding the direction of coming traffic. But the other story was about a woman who worked for British Airways, and she wore a cross around her neck. And British Airways had a rule in place that you weren't allowed to wear anything around your neck. I think the rule, and I could be wrong, but if I remember rightly, I think the rule was that you couldn't wear any jewellery at all. Maybe a wedding ring, I don't know, but there were, various issues. And that was the rule. You couldn't wear any jewellery at all. And this woman, with the support, no doubt, of a think tank or an organisation, this woman decided to take British Airways to tribunal because they had told her that she couldn't wear her cross around her neck. And the imposition of a rule designed to prohibit health workers from wearing jewellery became, in the hands of the people that are currently claiming that two-tier policing exists in this country but favours people of colour, that case became an attack upon Christianity. I mean, if you think that's mad, you should wait and see what happened when they tried to change scales so that they would have kilograms and pounds on them. I'm not even exaggerating. Same people, same media, same outlets, same individuals. So everybody went mad about this attack on Christianity, which was in fact a prohibition of jewellery on health workers. And unless you can persuade me otherwise, I think this story is the same. I don't think that it is a great affront to NHS staff to tell them that they can't wear pro-Palestinian symbols any more than it would be an affront to anybody else to tell them that they can't wear, I suppose, an Israeli flag perhaps would be the most obvious direct parallel, but lots of other badges as well. I don't think when you go to the NHS, your religion or your political opinions should be visible to the person that you are treating. For the very simple... I don't mean, obviously, I don't think you should be allowed to wear a swastika either. For the very simple reason that they may upset me. Now, it doesn't matter. We don't get to sit here and say, yeah, but that one shouldn't be upsetting and that one shouldn't, and that one should be and that one shouldn't, and that one is and that one isn't. A pluralistic society, a properly diverse society, sees people living alongside each other who can furiously disagree on things without actually coming to blows or attacking each other. And while I think that solidarity with Palestinian people is pretty much the only moral course to take in the current context in the Middle East, as well as, in my case, believing wholeheartedly in the not just the necessity but the justification of the existence of the modern state of Israel, I don't think anybody gets a free pass on this. Some Jewish people see the Palestinian flag as a support for Hamas, which of course it isn't. But if a Jewish person sees it like that, then they're going to be disturbed and they're going to be upset. I just think that the rule here should be nobody wears any form of insignia, whether political or religious, in the NHS. So if you really want to dig into it, some religious beliefs are... And you see, the thing about the rainbow badge is that I don't think that's political. I just think that's humanitarian. And now you're going to tell me, of course, that a Palestinian badge is also humanitarian, which is why it's going to be an interesting phone-in. Because right now, I don't think there should be a debate about which cause is just and which cause is not. I think it should be a debate about whether or not you get to tell patients who may not like your political beliefs what your political beliefs are. And one of the saddest discoveries of the last few years is the difficulty that many people have in condemning genocide in Gaza, because they are so fearful for the future of Jewish people, and Israel is the place where Jewish people go when it all starts happening again. And so the difficulty and the failure of being able to ride both of those horses, which is easy for someone like me with no personal skin in the game, is close to impossible for many people who see Israel as the place of sanctuary for Jewish people next time a political figure decides to scapegoat them for the problems of an entire nation. And because that emotional connection is so strong, as with a family member, you can't really concede wrongdoing, or you can't really accept that if they're doing it to protect you and yours, then they can't possibly be doing anything wrong. And I think it's a tragic scenario that position has been exploited by self-serving politicians in Israel and in the United States of America. If you want to get an indication of how toxic everything's become, Donald Trump was reportedly on the phone to Benjamin Netanyahu this week telling him that everybody hates Israel, something that would have, of course, seen almost anybody else in the world decried as anti-Semitic if it got out that they'd been shouting that down the phone in a private telephone conversation. So the context of much of this conversation is bonkers. But it doesn't seem to me to be bonkers to simply suggest that NHS staff should be barred from wearing political badges on their uniforms. And I guess I've already spotted a flaw in this, haven't I? Because if you're homophobic, tough. It's a bit like the things you can't help wearing, isn't it? Like your skin. If you're racist and you're getting treated by a brown nurse, tough. And if you are racist to the brown nurse, then... Or, of course, if you've been on diversity training and you now hate white people and you don't want to be treated by a white doctor, I'm joking if you're just tuning in, I presume that's obvious, but that's where we are now in Brexit Britain. You've been on diversity training and now you hate white people. Fantastic. Well, there you go. I told you it was a good phone-in. I'm not 100% clear that it is quite as clear as I thought it was, as I thought it was when I started talking. Should NHS staff be barred from wearing political badges, including symbols expressing solidarity with Palestinian people? My answer to the question is that you should be banned from wearing anything that is a political insignia or an expression of political opinion. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Or, I suppose the alternative is, and it's a valid question, this, should we let everybody wear everything? What would the problem be? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. NHS staff could be barred from wearing political badges on their uniforms, such as pro-Palestinian symbols, as part of proposals to help tackle anti-Semitism. What do you think? Do you welcome that? Is it a good idea, or can you see problems that I have currently missed? It's 11:22.
James O'Brien on LBC.
11:24, and I think I may have misjudged this one looking at my inbox. There are some examples coming in that rather drive a coach and horses through the idea that it would be both desirable and straightforward to ban all NHS staff from wearing political badges. And do you know what the problem is? You probably saw it before I did. Who gets to define what political means? Who gets to define what political is? Because I can't. I've already mentioned rainbow lanyards and rainbow badges expressing solidarity with LGBTQ plus people who have, of course, been discriminated against in our society, up to and including imprisonment in living memory. You want to ban that as well? Do we ban them all? Jamil is in Axminster. Jamil, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello,
I
mate.
agree with you.
Well, hang on. I'm in the middle of changing my mind. Quick, agree with me before I do.
So my background is I'm a radiographer. Background. I currently work in the industry side of things, but yes, I worked in the NHS. And I think one way you can go look at this is an infection control perspective. If you go into work... We lost the line there. An infection control perspective. You go into work, you've got to wear nothing below your elbows. You can only wear a wedding ring. You've got clean scrubs every day if you're wearing scrubs. You've got to wear a clean uniform. But using the same badge again and again and again. Yeah. So regardless of whether it's for Palestine or political or anything, I don't think that there should be anything on you apart from potentially your name badge.
And would that apply on the wards as well, not just in operating theatres and the like?
Because you're still dealing with patients and moving from one patient to another. So I think there's an argument from an infection control perspective there, apart from anything else. And I'm somebody who is very much been involved with humanitarian aid with Ukraine, and I'm very anti, shall we put this in a different way, anti-genocide, and take part in weekly in a vigil to promote what's going on in Palestine for the Palestinian people. But I would be completely against wearing any badges.
Entirely on infectious grounds.
Not entirely, but yes, I think that's the main thing for me. And then it's about you want your patient to be comfortable. When you're seeing a patient, you don't want them to be, reading all sorts of things into what your badge is.
Because I think that's more interesting. Because I could sterilise all the badges. I could have a rule in place that you have to put them through a steamer or whatever it is before you put. And I'm being a little bit pedantic, but it's negotiable. I think that point. What's not negotiable is that nothing political should be permitted, not just nothing metal or nothing worn or nothing below the elbow. Do you see what I mean?
I think the other thing is that when you talk about the religious aspect of wearing religious jewellery for badges, that becomes quite difficult, because if you say, right, nobody can wear crosses or little crucifixes or words in Arabic, Allah or whatever, you get rid of all that. But then what do you do when it comes to Muslim female doctors wearing a hijab?
Yeah. Or a Sikh doctor wearing a turban, or a Jewish doctor wearing a yarmulke.
Actually.
Well, I suppose my answer to that would be: are other members of staff allowed to? I mean, could I go in a bowler hat? If a Sikh can go in a turban, then can I go in a bowler hat? And if the answer to that is no, then you've got a problem. And I'm a little bit reluctant to bring turbans into it, because I think Sikhs are going to be having an absolutely terrible time out in Nigel's Britain, and I'm sure you are as well, Jamil. But it is a valid point, and it is an obvious example of what you're describing. But it's not like a cross. There's no, I suppose, this is where the debate went last time. So there's no religious requirement to wear a cross.
No, true.
So it doesn't quite work, and it's an infection risk.
Yeah, I think I'd quite like to see more doctors in bowler hats, actually.
Finally, something on which the whole world can agree. Bring back the bowler. Thank you, Jamil, and thank you for the work that you do. I just crack on with the news, actually, because there's only a minute left, and I don't want to squeeze my next caller into the space available. What tattoos are tricky, aren't they? I mean, what if you just get it tattooed on your forehead? Your support for Palestine. I mean, you wouldn't be able to rule. Why are you all so? You're being cleverer than me today. I like this topic. I suppose I did all the heavy lifting in the first hour. People are mentioning poppies. Irish footballers sometimes object to the poppy, or certainly decline to wear the poppy, because it's a symbol that carries a very different weight in countries that have been oppressed and colonised by British troops, like the like the island of Ireland has. It's just a small part of it where arguably it's still going on. So you've got poppies, you've got rainbows. I mean, if you're doing it entirely on infectious grounds, then everything has to be removed from it. 29 minutes after 11 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Dominic Ellis is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
11:32 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Mystery Hour on the way, of course, in 28 minutes. Just a quick one from Idiot's Corner. This is from David. I am so sick of you ranting on about Farage, and he is not there to answer your personal attacks. I bet you haven't got the bleeps or courage to invite him onto your show and have an honest debate. Mate, seriously, tell him, any time at all. In fact, go on YouTube, have a look at what happened last time. It was 12 years ago, David, and I still haven't had the return fixture. I accepted his challenge to have a debate on my own radio show. I let him in. Do you know what happened? He got dragged out by his own communications officer because it was going so well, David. That's what happens in the media when the grown-ups are playing. Things go really, really well, and your PR man comes into the studio and insists that the interview end immediately. So, look, I know I'm wasting my breath, because even though he will never have the guts to come into this studio ever, and you can see on YouTube exactly what happened when he did, it won't change your confidence, will it, that somehow I'm the coward here and he's the big man, telling people not to overreact to the murder of Sarah Everard while insisting that they overreact in the worst imaginable ways to the murder of Henry Novak. Have a lovely day, David. Michael's in Greenwich. Michael, badges and it's a bit off-piste for you. You normally ring me on matters of great international import, but this is nonetheless a fascinating question. Oh, and I've lost him after that introduction. I probably bored him to death. Ellen is in Nottingham. Ellen, what would you like to say about this?
Hi, James. Thanks for talking about this morning.
Likewise.
I just wanted to... There's a couple of things, if I've got time, I want to raise, but the main thing I wanted to talk about, because I don't think anyone else will, is that technically union symbols come under political symbols.
Yes, of course
and they
they
haven't
do.
just talked about badges. They're talking about any symbolism at all. So, lanyards, embossed shirts, anything that has a symbol will potentially be banned under this. And I'm a member of I work in the NHS. I'm part of a union. And a large part of what we do is obviously organising at work. So people showing that they're part of the union or supporting their union, and that making people feel more confident to join and stand up for themselves. And if the NHS is deciding what's banned, it's completely in their interests to ban union symbols, because why would they want us to organise? Why would they want us to fight back?
Are we looking at a baby bathwater scenario here? So even if I could persuade that person over there that this badge shouldn't be worn by people for this reason, and indeed all these badges shouldn't be worn by these people for all of these reasons, that one should be worn, and therefore you can't have a ban on badges.
Well, no, I think it's just, if we're talking about the situation, I think there are certain things that, probably should be banned and probably should be, considered about.
But this is the problem I have, is that as soon as you establish dispensations, the clamour for a dispensation goes up from everybody, with every badge.
Mm-hmm. So how, where are they going to draw the line? How are they going to decide? If we say, oh, yes, we agree with this because it's going to offend some people, well, people are offended by unions acting and strikes. Is that not going to offend people? People are offended, as you said, by rainbows. People are offended by certain charities being supported. How do we decide what's offensive to our patient group? And how do we decide what's morally acceptable? Where do we draw that line?
I was hoping you'd answer those questions, but obviously neither of us can, and that's a reason not to do it, I suspect, or at least
it's too individual.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And also, let's not ignore one of the most troubling elements about all of this, which is that support for Palestinian people, or solidarity with Palestinian people, or even opposition to the activities of the current Israeli regime in Gaza and Lebanon and beyond, is not anti-Semitism. However hard Benjamin Netanyahu tries to pretend that it is, or however often he claims that he's acting on behalf of all Jewish people, he isn't, and it isn't. So why on earth would anybody have to take off a badge demonstrating solidarity with the Palestinian people because some poor souls have been persuaded that that's somehow an expression of hating Jews? It seems almost as if you're capitulating to propaganda and to lies. I don't know, and certainly to unhealthy conflations. Michael is in Greenwich. Michael, what would you like to say?
Well, some of what I was going to say has been said, but my concern is that the countering anti-Semitism, I don't think the answer is to teach people to understand more about Judaism, no more than the answer to Islamophobia is to teach people more about Islam, or homophobia is to teach more about people who are LGBT. It's a question of, you have, I think, teach people what are the underlying emotional causes that create this, the anger, the hatred. If you confront intolerance and young people learn to identify where that comes from within themselves, then no matter what dog whistle is used, it won't be very effective, because people say, oh, wait a minute, they're just trying to get me angry at somebody else. And you could fill in the blank on who this somebody else is.
For sure.
But I think it's a fundamental mistake that we're making, that we think to teach tolerance, you have to have a greater understanding of the target population. No, you need a better understanding of what it is within me that would respond to that call, because ultimately they're all people. People say, well, I should be more tolerant of black people or Jewish people. No, we should be more tolerant of people. I always think of this woman who walks down the street going, I don't see anybody that looks like me just because she can't see people.
Yeah.
I mean, I walk down the street and the whole street isn't populated by older white guys who are 5'10" and slightly overweight, nobody looks like me. Nobody looks like me, and thank God, and nobody looks like anybody else.
This could have been a contribution to the last hour of the program, couldn't it, in some ways?
Yeah, this is what always, these are the things I think about. What is it in us that we keep making these distinctions? What does melatonin really have to do with anything?
Well, I agree with you, but in the context of badges, there's a slightly different equation than there is with melatonin or skin colour. So under your analysis, what you would say to someone who was troubled by a pro-Palestinian badge is, why are you troubled by someone showing solidarity with a population that is currently being bombed into quasi-oblivion?
Well, I also would say, what is it about a symbol? I mean, I'll give you a pretty dramatic example of free speech. The American Nazi Party applied for a petition to march through Skokie, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. That was primarily Jewish.
Right.
This is a good 30, 40 years ago when there were still a number of Holocaust survivors in that neighborhood.
Good grief.
Well, they applied for the permit. The permit was denied. The ACLU sued on their behalf, saying this is free speech. And they got the right to march. And they marched, and people counter-protested, and it was peaceful, and people talked about it, and people condemned the Nazis for it. So I think we have to be able to accept that someone wearing a Palestinian flag is no threat, no more than if someone wears the Star of David, or they wear a cross, or they wear a labor badge, a union badge.
I think you're swinging me. So it is all or nothing, though, because the danger comes in defining what is a political symbol and what isn't. And one person says it is and one person says it isn't. Who gets to sit in judgment?
No, I think the question is what actually is dangerous?
Yes.
Is speech dangerous? I don't think so. And the only thing I would add to this, which is really related to the earlier conversation, there should be no anonymity online.
Yeah, I mean, you're covering a lot of. I'd agree with that as well. Although some people, because some people point out that they might be whistleblowers or they might be, drawing attention to egregious activities anonymously, and they want to, and online is a wonderful way to do it and retain their anonymity. But yeah, I'm going to correct you on one thing. It's melanin, not melatonin.
Thanks. Yeah.
Melatonin is...
No, thanks for the correction.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm the radio equivalent of melatonin. That's the thing that sends you to sleep. Melanin is the thing that influences your pigmentation, of course. Top man. Thank you, Michael. So it is... If a Palestinian symbol upsets you, you'd have to explain why. And or if a Star of David upsets you, you'd have to explain why. Or even an Israeli flag, of course, which refers to the nation, not the current regime. Or even if you're a fan of the current regime and you wear an Israeli flag, the other person has to explain why. Will it compromise treatment? Is it a compromise of freedom? And if it's political, who says it's political? Farah is in Southfields. Farah, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Can I just say thank you so much for interviewing Aziz and Maoz last week.
Wasn't that lovely?
I bought the ticket. I bought the ticket and I saw them the next day and met them and listened, and it was so uplifting, which is a rarity in today's political landscape. Okay, so I don't think... I called you before. I'm very much on, standing in solidarity with the Palestinians and trying to get this peace through Israel as well. And I actually... don't think doctors should be wearing political symbols. I'm not sure about the union ones, but the political symbols, because I do think it can make patients feel uncomfortable. I was in hospital a couple of days ago. I was very stressed out. They thought I had a stroke. It was actually a migraine. It was a big drama. But while I was sitting in the waiting room, there was a nurse who was looking at me, and she was looking at me in a way that I recognise when people look at me and feel uncomfortable.
Really?
And I had a Palestinian bracelet. I always had it on my wrist. And I took it off and I put it in my pocket. And the reason I took it off is that I actually was worried that if anybody saw me with this symbol, maybe, and this is so unfair on doctors because I've never experienced it, but be this particular political climate with that topic, I may not be listened to, or perhaps I would be treated differently.
Because doctors are humans. Why do you think that the person was looking at you askance? Sorry.
She just kept looking at me and then looking actually at my wrist. And often
I see.
When people,
okay. No, I didn't get that bit. I didn't get that
Yeah,
bit.
she's looking at the bracelet. And when people sort of look at that, often it's like in solidarity. They'll smile at you,
Sure.
or there'll be some sort of affirmation type
Yes.
thing.
But the
she did
opposite
not
can
look.
be true as well. The opposite can
Exactly.
be true as well.
So I don't think they should wear political badges, but I do think they should be allowed to wear religious symbols. When I see a Star of David or a cross, I have to say it makes me feel a lot better, because I feel a connection because I'm a Muslim and the Abrahamic. So, and I also think it shows diversity in the workplace, in the NHS. And I think it's quite a welcoming thing. I don't think it's a divisive thing. And I think, if you're the sort of person who's proud to, so religious that you want to show your beliefs, I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
Is it to the point of dispensation, though, Farah? So if you're not allowed to wear any other jewellery, should you be allowed to wear a necklace with a cross on it? And if you're not allowed to wear any other badges, should you be allowed to wear a badge with the Star of David on it?
I think if it's a badge and... Oh, gosh, you've got me on that one.
Yeah, it's the thing that gets me as well. And then we bring in Jamil's point earlier about infection control, which is, not a red herring. It might be a navigable objection, but if the reason why you're not allowed to wear... It was British Airways, to be honest, not the NHS, the first time I dipped my toe into this conversation, but the rule was no one can wear... jewellery, particularly necklaces, in case you're leaning over the baggage rail and it gets caught up and you get dragged around like Mr. Bean. But the point stands, whether it's a crucifix or a cross on the end of that chain or not, you're not allowed to wear chains. So no one's allowed to wear chains.
I don't think you should wear... Well, then, on that case, don't wear anything.
Well, then you can't wear the religious. You can't. So if you're not allowed to wear any...
Take it off.
Yeah.
Take it off. If it's, something like infection control, or you're going to drop your wedding ring inside some poor person you're...
yes,
then...
can't perish the thought. You wouldn't be able to go through airport security barriers, would you, without setting the whole thing off?
Exactly. Exactly.
Are we confident that we can easily navigate the difference between a religion and a political position?
I think if you're wearing an Israeli flag, for example... sorry, my dog's barking.
No, that's all right. I'll let you go. And I'll just... Because I was going to be completely 1980s phone-in host at that point and go, what about a Satanist? Should a Satanist be allowed to wear the mark of the beast while working in the NHS? If you've just tuned in... You probably should rewind a bit to get a little bit of context there. I'm not quite that guy. It's 11:46.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:50, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Just in reference to the conversation in the first hour of the programme, there's a rather beautiful piece on the LBC website at the moment by Claudia Vince, who was a survivor of the Fishmongers Hall attack, as it has become known, and she witnessed her friend Jack Merritt, who died that day. She witnessed attempts to turn that murder into a political moment, and also witnessed Jack's father's refusal to let it become one, pointing out that Jack himself would have become livid at his death being used to advance political agendas. And she's written incredibly powerfully and very helpfully about exactly where the lines and the parameters should be at a time when, of course, just as in the past, Lee Rigby's family have been ignored, and this week Henry Novak's family have been completely ignored, and Alice Gross's family were completely ignored when she was murdered in my neck of the woods not long ago. That horrible practice that many members of the media and many politicians engage in. But Claudia has written the best account I've read of essentially why, in this case, Henry Novak's family deserve better. So I do heartily and heavily recommend that. 11:51 is the time. Back to the question of whether Satanists should be able to wear badges in the NHS. That's a joke. Whether or not all badges displaying political affiliations, but not necessarily religious ones, should be banned or NHS staff should be banned from wearing. Holly's in Camden. Holly, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, Holly.
I was going to come at it from the point of view of badges and sort of mental health. Could I just quickly comment on the trade union badges?
Yeah, of course you can.
Thing? Yeah, because most of the larger unions, like the LCN, Unite, Unison, will have legal recognition agreements with employers. So by that way, the employer's basically sort of recognising, agreeing with the union. So that may be something that you factor in if you've got a union badge. That was all I was going to say.
That's a good point.
In terms of mental health, obviously we still have some of the same infection sort of prevention risks, but we also need to work on that degree of risk assessment as well. Inpatient community might be slightly different. You talked about poppies earlier. I would not wear a poppy with a pin on an inpatient ward.
No, of course you wouldn't.
If I was going to see a community patient, I may wear a poppy on my coat. And as well, that would come down to knowing your patient, knowing your patient's history. If somebody had served, then it might be very appropriate to wear a poppy.
But equally, if all political symbols are banned, then the poppy would be on the list, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly, and this is where it gets really difficult. I would say, certainly for inpatient mental health, I would agree, because one of your basic, apart from sort of obviously some medication, one of your basic treatment things is forming that trusting therapeutic relationship.
And that could be hard to do if you're advertising the fact that you hold an opinion that your patient might be diametrically or passionately opposed to.
Or even if they're not normally, people's belief systems can change when they're unwell. They can be quite extreme when they're unwell. So I would always say I personally would want to be, on the surface, a blank canvas to my patients. Until I get to know them, they get to know me. We have that relationship.
It's nicely put.
We can have that conversation about.
Beautifully put. And absolutely, I can't find a single thing to dispute in what you've said, except...
thank you very much, because I was...
I said except then. You jumped in.
I've rung you.
You jumped in just as I was saying except that. I know I'm going to ruin it now, but no, I'm not going to ruin it now, because I just wondered whether it would be particular to your branch of medicine. I mean, these arguments are obviously applicable in the context of mental health, not necessarily if I'm going in to have my bunions done.
I don't know, but you don't know, do you? That's
you don't
the thing.
know.
You're not... You haven't got time plastered on your head saying, oh, by the way, I have mental health difficulties.
No, you're right. No, I think... Actually, I take it back.
About it when I was waiting, and I think, we just can't make assumptions about everybody. And, I'm a human with a personality, but I also think I should be a blank canvas as a professional.
And of course, in some ways, I suppose Farah's point was that she as a patient should be a blank canvas as well, because she was worried that perhaps what she was wearing might have engendered a slightly negative response in one of the people she encountered last time she was in hospital. What a lovely call. Thank you, Holly. I've got an idiot's corner. Good Lord, who'd have thought in this one? Interesting how you cut off Farah just as she was about to share her thoughts on the Israeli flag. Yes. Farah announced that her dog was barking, and therefore she had sort of lost her thread in the point that she was making at the moment, while clearly, for anybody with 4 brain cells, she was pointing out that the Star of David is a religious symbol, which she would be comfortable with, while the Israeli flag is a political symbol, which she would not. I'm happy to explain that to you, because obviously your point comes from the fact, or comes from the position of believing that I am some sort of shill for the Israeli government. And it's nice to be reminded that you're still out there. You irredeemable flump. Alison is in Crawley. Alison, what would you like to say?
Oh, hi, James.
Hello,
I totally agree with your last caller. I trained as a nurse in 1977. I'm retired now. And back then, we were absolutely not allowed to wear anything whatsoever on our uniforms other than our name badge and our hospital, a qualification, if you like, is a sort of, and that was absolutely it. And you weren't allowed to wear your uniform. And my goodness, you'd have been sacked for wearing your uniform to a march. And the point about it isn't about making judgments. And why it should be absolute like this is because when patients come into hospital, they're in all sorts of states. They're incredibly vulnerable. They can be anxious. They can be terrified, and so on and so forth. They really don't need to be having any kind of even thought process around the conversations that you have had with various people this morning. Nobody needs that on top of dealing with their diagnosis and their health. You don't even need to have to think, gosh, what does that badge mean? Oh, God, I wonder if she'll be all right. And you've got enough worries. It is inappropriate and unprofessional, and it has grown over the years. And I think it's absolutely right for any number of reasons, but I actually think just a blanket ban, you have nothing on your uniform. And what that previous lady, who very rudely, I can't remember her name, but, what she's talking about, a blank canvas, that's exactly what I
thought you were calling her rude then, Alison, but you were being rude by not being able to remember Holly in Camden's name. Yeah. Holly in Camden.
That's it, exactly.
That's all right. My ears pricked up then. I thought, has someone been rude? I didn't notice it. Flipping heck. Sorry, yes.
No, she's entirely
great
right.
Phrase.
It's a blank canvas, and it is about mental health, and everybody has mental health, not just patients who are being treated for their mental health. And we need to respect that. And it is not appropriate to have your union badge or your political allegiance or your gay pride badge. And, and I'm someone who has... I would describe myself as extremely liberal and supportive of
It'll never catch
many
on.
of these causes, but that is not the appropriate place to do it. And also, just to add a little bit of stuff, that as nurses and doctors and health professionals generally, we treat people without fear or favour. So we will treat people who are racist, and in war, you will get nurses treating casualties from the other side. So casualties who've inflicted wounds on your own soldiers, because that's what you do professionally. So, just let's stop all this. Nobody has a right to... We weren't allowed to wear crosses.
No.
No, or... Now...
And of course, just because certain members of the community could portray that as an attack upon Christianity, as long as their audience didn't do any thinking or reading of their own, or of course, on this occasion, you could claim that this is evidence of Israeli powers controlling discourse and banning nurses from wearing pro-Palestinian symbols. It doesn't matter how loudly they shout this stuff; it won't make it true. It's done for the reasons that you and almost all of my callers have rather brilliantly articulated.
It's just not the appropriate place.
What about a Blue Peter badge?
No.
What? You monster! You absolute monster! But I take your point. Lovely stuff. Thank you, Alison. The time now is approaching 12 noon. You are listening to James O'Brien. We're doing the thing. I thought we might just hit the 12 noon and I'd go to the news on time, but we all like the thing because the thing gives me an opportunity. The thing gives me an opportunity to remind you what is coming up next. And sometimes I have to check the date, or at least the day. Thursday is the day, which means it is, God willing, time for Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio. You notice what I do differently now, Keith? Have you noticed? I don't say dial anymore. It was pointed out to me. It made me sound old and somewhat anachronistic because people don't really have radio. Well done, Boomer, says Keith. I don't say dial. It's anywhere on your radio. It is an opportunity to solve mysteries, to unravel riddles and to undo enigmas.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Honestly, 4 minutes after. Would you like a couple of tales from the towers? Look, I just have to run around the building at the moment to find a functioning facility because there's so much building work going on. I personally think there should be a ban on non-presenters using the facilities during these little junctions because that's when presenters need them. I'm often to be found fighting Alexander Armstrong and Alex Jones. I was dragging Alex Jones out of the gents and Alexander Armstrong came around and hit me round the back of the head with a bin so that he could get in and relieve himself. But I just walked past Classic FM and goodness me, Alex Jones has got a beautiful speaking voice, hasn't he? I mean, you'd think of the fella as a singer, don't you? But, oh, man alive, I could listen to him read out the phone book. I really could. Don't, whatever you do, tell him that I said so. Hopefully, he'll be too busy listening to the clip of me blowing smoke up his fundament that I'll be able to beat him to the lavatory next time. It's time for Mystery Hour. It's a mad building there sometimes. You can be walking around the building, and Jonathan Ross will pop by because he's recording his Classic FM programme or doing his podcast down in the bowels of the building, and Alid will be in doing Alexander's holiday cover. You give old Alid a wave as you go past, and Mylene Class will be here as well, because we're next to Classic FM and Smooth, so Kate Garraway will often be spotted waiting by the lift. It's a bit like the bar in Star Wars. That's what it's like in this building sometimes. 6 minutes after 12 is the time. Shall we get Mystery Hour underway? The way it works is this. Someone rings in with a question and someone else rings in with an answer. That's it. How do I get 5 minutes of spiel out of this every week, Keith? That's it. Someone rings. Oh, yeah, there's a board game. One board game, one travel game. The travel game is in the tin. 2 games. How can a lowly radio feature like this, dreamt up so that we wouldn't run the risk of saying anything political by accident on the day of a by-election? So it was on a Thursday. That's why it's on Thursdays, even though it feels very Friday. How could such a lowly little radio idea have grown into a behemoth that not only has an online archive beloved by billions, but also has spawned 2 actual real games that you can buy with real money? Extraordinary. Anyway, my favourite contributor of the week wins a game. Either the board game or the travel game. It's in a tin. You can find the full terms and conditions for the competition at lbc.co.uk, and you can find out more about the Mystery Hour games, plural, at LBC... No, what is it? mysteryhour.co.uk. mysteryhour.co.uk. Do you know why I got distracted there? Thank you. This is actually insane. Will sent me a message in capital letters when I was going on about all the people that you can bump into as you wander around this building. Will sent me a message in capital letters saying, James, focus. And because it was in capital letters, I glanced at it and it drew my attention. I'm not going to tell you that because otherwise you'll send me all your messages in capital letters and it'll be like living in Donald Trump's brain. So I got distracted by Will telling me to focus. I forgot to say that you can find out more about the Mystery Hour games, plural, at mysteryhour.co.uk. It's not too soon to start thinking about Christmas. All right, it is too soon to start thinking about Christmas, but we might sell out at Christmas. So get in there now. And then someone else rings in with the answer, OK? It says on my screen that Steve is in Shrewsbury, but he's currently in Italy. So why have we put that on? Why don't we just say Steve is in Italy? I grant you it's a big place, but it's more accurate than Shrewsbury. Steve, question or answer?
It's a question, James.
Carry on, Steve.
Well, I'm in Italy because I've just had
I never. Go on.
Funny enough, I'm not in Shrewsbury. I'm all the way over in Umbria, in Narni, in Umbria, and it's beautiful and hot and gorgeous weather. Right, and I've been hit. Well, I'm going to rub it in a bit more now because we had last week a fantastic party to celebrate our wedding.
Oh, which congratulations!
Thank you. That happened in Cornwall. Just before Christmas. So we just eloped, the 2 of us, but we had the party over here.
Oh, how delightful.
Now, it was gorgeous, I have to say. But the question is, during the party, and probably a little bit before and a little bit after, in fact, probably right now, we've enjoyed an awful lot of Italian wine, really nice Italian wine. And it's delicious. But in the evenings, and especially at night, the not-so-lovely Italian mosquitoes come along and bite me.
Oh.
And what I want to know is if I have a particularly high blood alcohol content,
yes,
when the mosquito comes along and has a little bit of drink of my blood, does the mosquito get drunk too?
It's a nice question.
And is that why they keep coming back?
I think we know the second bit's probably not true. But I mean, would it be strong enough? Do you think the blood? I mean, you can imagine a mosquito having because alcohol. Well, it depends on the metabolism as well, doesn't it? I mean,
but I have to say it was a very good party.
Okay, so you were absolutely stocious. Any Primitivo? I'm quite partial to a bit of Primitivo.
There was a bit of everything, I think.
Right, you're on. So,
really
with a mosquito...
I discovered cocktails for the first time.
Did you really?
I didn't even know what it was.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, what colour was it?
I don't normally do cocktails.
No, they're quite dangerous, because you think it's like drinking liquid Haribo, don't you? And then suddenly you realise you've put away about 48 units, and it's not even 7 o'clock, or is that just Keith?
No.
What colour was it? What colour was the cocktail?
It was pretty colourless, actually.
Oh.
sort of a slightly yellowy colour.
Okay.
Began with a C. It began with a C.
It had a limoncello in it? Was it lemony?
No.
Began with a C.
Limoncello.
It's not a cosmopolitan. That's that's pink.
No.
Well, there you go. Let's play Hump the Cocktail. We've invented a new feature for the next time there's a by-election. You ring in. Anyway, we'll find out for you. Will Steve's blood alcohol content have any effect on all the mosquitoes that that are currently feasting on him in Umbria? Thank you, Steve. 2 phone lines free. Remember, some of the people that ring in at the very top of the hour have either not quite got the hang of it, or I would never. Martha and Amelia, who are answering the phones, would never say this to them, but I can. Their questions are rubbish. So some people ring in with rubbish questions and they don't get on. And a bit like, this is a nice one, a bit like if you're really clever and you're about to beat me up online in a discussion live on air in a discussion about racism or two-tier policing, then they screen you out and they don't let you on. I presume that's still a story that's being told on Elon Musk's platform. It's about as true as most of the things that are being told on Elon Musk's platform, but I occasionally get something creeping into my conscious. Yeah, they don't let on good people. They don't let on decent people who can tell him what's what. It's outrageous how they just let people on who they know are stupid. But they actually agree with me, the stupid people. But they don't let me on because I'm clever. Anyway, some questions are really bad and they genuinely don't get on, which means there'll be a couple of phone lines free, usually about 3 minutes after we start. Andy is in Hull. Andy, question or answer?
I have a question, James, please.
Carry on.
So, I don't know, people who lip read, I think that's probably the easiest way to say it. Would they know that I'm from Yorkshire?
So can lip readers detect accents?
Yes, accents, yeah. Especially, obviously, within the UK, we've got a vast range of accents. Would they say, this guy's from Yorkshire, this guy's, Mancunian? Accents, are they...
I think we've had this before, but I can't remember the answer, so, I mean, it counts again. There'd be some... I'm trying to think of the most elongated, like the thing that does the most weird... Probably a Scouser, is it? Whose mouth is the most... associated with the accent.
My wife is Polish and she can understand really strong, Scots accents straight away. But she still struggles now when I'm talking to her.
Really? No, she's just pretending, mate.
Well, yeah, more than likely, yeah. Especially, yeah.
I like this. I like this. I don't quite... I can't. I usually can have a fairly educated guess on... I would have thought not. But who knows? I like that. Can you identify an accent just from lip reading? Lovely question.
Yeah, because when you learn to lip read, I'm assuming you do it off a DVD or something like that, and that person will be speaking the Queen's English, really perfect English.
Yeah, probably.
So then
probably.
When you come to all, and it's like, it's different.
But I'm going to do a variety of accents. You're still shaping your mouth in the same way. Well, also, you've got dialects as well when they drop syllables, like I just did, in a slightly patronising way. When you drop a syllable.
That's it, yeah. We're famous for 5 and 9. So people are going to look at that and go, what is that word? I don't even recognise that word. If it's just purely on how your
you
mouth
could be right.
moves.
Yeah, you're on. Hey, I think it was a caipirinha, Andy.
You've lost me, mate. Go on.
The cocktail. Oh, I know, the cocktail that Steve was having in Umbria just before you came on.
Mate. Yeah, you know what? I was half listening and I was half watching the dog in the garden. Sorry, the dog was rolling in something.
We're going to sort that out. I'm sure we've had that before, but hey, I'm 54. I can't remember the answer. Sue me. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. 12:14. So, do mosquitoes react to, in any way, the blood alcohol content of their victims or the prey? And can lip readers detect regional accents? Hit the numbers now. You probably will get through, actually, but we need a few more questions as well. The time now is 12:15.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:16, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Mosquitoes and blood alcohol and lip reading and accents. Juliet's in Marlow. Juliet, question or answer?
It's a question, and thank goodness for that, because I was really worried when I was there on hold.
Yeah.
When you were saying about people with rubbish questions not getting through, and I thought that you was surreptitiously telling those on hold your questions are rubbish, so hang up.
God, you're making me sound like a monster.
No, I just was a bit worried, thinking, oh no, maybe he's just trying to tell us nicely if we're waiting in the sidelines.
No, it's the people who aren't on it's the people who've been politely told that we'll ring them back. They're the ones whose questions sorry, I'm getting my own colleagues into trouble now. I'm not. That's not how it works at all. The only people that aren't allowed on are the people who are much, much cleverer than me and will beat me in all arguments. They're the only people that are not allowed on to... Oh, and Nigel Farage as well, because I'm frightened of him. They're the people. They're the only people that aren't allowed. Go on then, Juliet. Question or answer?
It's a question. I'm going to caveat it with saying it is actually my daughter's question, but she's not here to ask it. So if it's rubbish, it's her question. But
God,
if it's really
chuck your own daughter under the bus, and there's me apologising for being a monster. Go on.
Yeah, no joke. Okay, so first cousins whose parents, and for argument's sake, to make it easier to picture, their mothers are identical twin sisters.
Yeah.
Does that make the first cousins slightly genetically closer than just regular first cousins?
Yes.
Oh, do you know that definitively already?
Yeah, all right, clever clogs. I mean, I appreciate you're going to want a little bit more flesh on the bones of that answer.
Okay.
But again, as with the lip reading one, it rings a bell. This, I think that if two identical twins marry two identical twins, I think their children are genetically siblings rather than cousins.
Really?
Well, I mean, don't take it to the bank, but I think so. They would be, wouldn't they?
Well, I don't know. I think her question was more if just the mothers. So if the mothers.
No, I know her question, but I mean, but if my theory is correct, then her theory will be correct as well. They will be more than normal cousins.
Regular.
They'll have more in common. But I mean, then again, of course, you go back far enough. Cousins marrying each other all the time, particularly. In the I knew you were going to say in the royal family, but in rural areas as well, and all over the place. We wouldn't move around a lot. We weren't very mobile, so when you looked at a family tree, there'd be degrees of kinhood on it that would be less likely to be there now. And therefore, I don't know that there is a pure sibling type DNA map, if you see what I mean, or a pure cousin one. But I think I'll ask. I don't know why I'm wanging on about this. I don't know anything about it. The question's brilliant. If you have identical twins and they both have children, will those children have a closer genetic connection than other first cousins?
Exactly that. Yes.
Why does she want to know? Are you an identical twin?
No, I'm not.
Oh.
And do you know what? She's actually staying with her cousins and my sister-in-law right now doing work experience. And I don't know if she was thinking about the relationship, the closeness.
No, it's nice.
Maybe that's what it was. So
no, I like it. I like it. It's a good... Thank you very much, Juliet. We shall find out for you. Cousins and twins. 20 minutes after 12. Ben is in Bristol. Ben, question or answer?
Hi, James. Yes, question, please.
Carry on.
My question is, when you see car showrooms in like shopping malls and like big shopping centres, how do they get the cars into the showroom? Basically, in context, I was in Cribs Causeway in Bristol recently.
Oh, yes.
And on the second floor in there, there's a Polestar showroom. And I was thinking, how on earth did they get them in there? Because obviously Cribs Causeway has still been made for a long time, so it's not like they made it around the car showroom. So, yeah.
They've got massive lifts.
Yeah, but how do they get it in though?
They drive it in.
Yeah, but where through?
What? well, they wait till it's shut, and then they drive. How else are they going to do it? Like teleporter.
Yeah, but no, but like you know what I mean?
Yeah, but all right, Vicky Pollard, spit it out.
Go on, there's got to be a better answer than that.
Why do you think it's not, just to be clear, because I may be missing some elements of the question, why do you think it's not lifts?
I don't know. I mean, I guess so, but just it seems like there's, I don't know, just getting it in through the front. They have to take off the front doors and stuff. I don't know.
There's a trader, there's a goods entrance. Everywhere's got a goods entrance with a little ramp and a metal thing, and you drive it in, and there's a big old... Well, look, do you want me to get you a generic answer, or do you want someone who is specific?
Somebody works in it.
Someone who is specific to the mall at Cribs Causeway in Bristol.
Because maybe, but also your colleague was saying about the one, you know, when you're driving in from the M4 towards London.
Yes.
And there's the massive big skyscraper that's got like loads of cars.
That's near my house. That's lifts. I've seen. Yeah, that's lift. You can see the lift on the side of the Audi garage. They go up. Okay. It's so that's why I think it's lifts. There's an Audi garage, there's a Volkswagen garage, just opposite where the GlaxoSmithKline building used to be.
Yeah.
Well, the building's still there. It's just not GlaxoSmith. It's gone a bit niche, this, Ben.
Yeah.
Right, you're on. How do they get cars into malls, if not in lifts? Then it must be magic flipping wands, but he doesn't accept my answer, so we'll have to wait for yours. 0345. And do you say mall or mall, Ben?
Mall.
Yeah,
mall.
I do too. It's the mall. So the mall is where, the big street in town, and the mall is where you go shopping. 22 minutes, even though they're spelled the same. David's in Bristol. David, question or answer?
Question, James.
Carry on, David.
Very quick one. I've been on holiday recently.
Yeah, everyone has, it seems, except me. I'm going at the end of the month.
It's that time of year, isn't it?
Hanging in there.
Won't be long.
Thank you.
Quick question. Why does the palms of your hands and the base of your feet never catch a tan?
They've got no melatonin in them.
Is it purely and simply that?
That was a very good joke with a bit of comedic callback to Michael's call earlier, later in the last. That melanin, of course, I mean.
Yes.
Don't I? Yeah,
but no, they don't. One, they don't seem to burn, and two, they never seem to change colour.
I reckon they'd burn. I mean, they would burn eventually, wouldn't they? Because you burn, when someone says, "Don't touch that plate, it's really hot."
If you sat there in the sun for hours, you would probably, catch serious skin damage. But.
Okay, well, obviously, with all of these questions, I think I've answered them correctly, but we're going to need someone who's actually got some qualifications to confirm or deny my theory. So you're much thicker skin on the palms of your hands and
I did think that.
The soles of your feet, so that will be part of it, coupled with the old melanin.
Would it take longer? Could you physically tan your palms of your hands eventually?
I don't. I think people of colour have much paler palms and soles than the rest of their bodies are. So obviously it's going to be linked to melanin, but I will get you a proper answer, or at least get you an answer that may be the same as mine, but it will be from someone who actually knows what they're talking about. Which is always preferable. Thank you very much. Palms. Where did you go on your holidays?
Menorca.
How was it?
Beautiful.
Was it? Quite a lot of people going to Menorca this year. Has it become cool? Has it become fashionable?
We go to a very quiet place.
Very nice.
No English, all Spanish. It was fantastic.
That won't last. The place I go to in Greece used to be like that. Then I told everyone about it. 24 minutes after 12 is the time. Dean is in Shoreham. Dean, question or answer?
Hello, James. There's a question.
Carry on, Dean.
Someone on this show will be able to solve a years-long argument between me and my mum.
Go on, then.
And I'm with my mum today, so I said,
What's your mum's name?
Mystery Hour. My mum's name is Brenda.
Hello, Brenda!
When it gets hot, like it did last week, my mum insists that drinking a cup of tea cools you down because she says it will make you sweat and sweating will cool you. I say that's a load of rubbish. I say
don't speak to your mother like that, please.
I gently disagree with my mother.
That's
James.
more like it. Yes.
Thank you. And sorry, mother. And I say that it basically raises your temperature, and then you start to naturally cool down, and then you go back to where you started. So basically it makes you hotter, and then you're back to where you started rather than cooling you down. Is there someone listening to this show who is, a scientist of some sort that can tell us whether it cools you down or not?
Me.
What are your qualifications, James?
I've dealt with this question before, and I spent a period of my life as a labourer on a building site in South Yorkshire where this was a subject of brief but definitive debate among my labouring colleagues.
Right.
I don't know if it was 2 weeks, actually. It might have only been 1 week. But anyway, it was a very significant part of my life. And in a way, you're both right, because obviously when you drink a cold drink, you cool down internally quite quickly. But your mother is more right. But as long as the sweat can evaporate, you'll be wearing short sleeves or short trousers, as long as the sweat can evaporate, because it's the evaporation that causes the heat exchange that cools you down much more effectively, much more long-termly, and much more comprehensively. So your mum is right. The hot drink causes you to sweat a bit. The sweat evaporates. That cools down any bit of skin where the sweat has appeared and subsequently evaporated. Whereas go on.
So what if I'm wearing nylon or rayon or something that?
Well, I don't. I mean, that isn't the question, is it? You're only allowed one question, and Brenda's right. She's done you like a kipper, mate, old Brenda. Not old Brenda, lovely Brenda.
Oh,
lovely Brenda.
She's made it up the stairs and is now cackling at me, James.
She's not cackling, you rude boy. She's chuckling. Honestly, show her some respect. Well done, Brenda.
Hello, thank you very much. I knew
there it is.
Argue.
You know what you're going to do now to celebrate? You're going to have a nice cup of tea.
I will. It'll calm me down.
A round of applause for all of us. Lovely stuff. Thank you, Dean. Oh, there you go. Well, I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, also, don't wear nylon. Bal's in Stourbridge. Bal, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on, Bal.
How to get cars into shopping centres and dealerships that are high up.
Yes.
Well, first things first, the Audi one, they have obviously lifts, which you've already figured out.
Yes.
But some car showrooms actually have ramps outside where they actually have a ramp on towards the top of the showroom.
Yes.
And then they'll drive it through onto a bay, and that'll drive it through into the second floor of the showroom. But regarding shopping centres, that's a little bit more health and safety and difficult. Again, they'll drive you through double doors somewhere in the shopping centre. And nowadays, they're pretty flexible. You can actually drive the car through and then park it up, and then you have to disconnect the battery and put a little tray underneath for the oil. But many, many years ago, to make sure that the car was disconnected the battery, there was hardly any fuel, and you literally had to make sure that you push the car into the designated demonstration
And the thing about...
area.
So also to help, Ben, there would be a lift in there because but we wouldn't see it. Lifts. We wouldn't see it because it's not. I mean, you have to get massive pallets of trainers up to the third floor as well and things like that.
Well, you'll have pallets for deliveries for obviously Marks and Spencers.
But if there's a car on the third floor, there's a lift there because they've not brought it up the escalators.
Well, what you'll have is obviously whatever bay the car is going to go through, it'll drive up the ramp to the area where there's a lift, drive it through, or it may not even need to go through the lift because obviously there might be a double door that they'll be driving it through anyway.
Yeah, but generally, if you can't see the means by which that car has got to where it's got, then there is either a ramp or a lift off stage.
Absolutely right. There's a ramp or a lift, and again, a lot of dealerships, especially the Audi, that have ramps behind the dealership where they'll drive onto the ramp onto the roof. There'll be a loading bay, and then you'll drive the car straight through, or you go onto a lift, obviously whatever floor you want to go onto, and then take it through there.
Qualifications?
That's how they do it. I've been selling cars for 31 years.
Whereabouts in Stourbridge are you?
I actually live in Halsowing now.
Oh.
I used to be in Stourbridge. I used to be in Pedmore, so your neck of the woods.
Pedmore, yeah, that is near me. I had a girlfriend from Pedmore when I was about 13.
Oh, video.
It's a small world, isn't it? Yeah, lovely.
It is a small world.
Love that. So, but have you delivered cars to dealerships, yes, but have you delivered them to shopping malls ever and stuff like that?
Yes, yeah. You did the utility arena in Birmingham about 10, 15 years ago, which was a bit of a nightmare.
A round of applause for Bal, please.
Thank you very much. And hopefully I'll win a book and a prize.
Yeah, there's a board. I'm not giving away books, mate. My kids need shoes, but there might be a board game in it for you a little later. Although, competition at the moment is pretty stiff. I'm probably leaning towards Dean and his mum. Obviously, aren't we at the moment? I don't know. Thank you, Bal. Here's Matt Hewitt with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:33 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Theatres as well, probably. Thinking about it, have massive lifts, won't they, around the place? Anyway, questions that still need answers. Do mosquitoes respond to the alcohol content in your blood when they eat you, or specifically Steve in Umbria? Do lip readers detect regional accents? If identical twins had children, would those children be genetically more than cousins? Would they be sort of halfway in between cousins and siblings? I'd suppose. We've done the cars, and that's Bal's answer. We've done the hot drinks. That was James's answer. And why are the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet immune to sunlight? Why don't they tan ever? Andy's in Islington. Andy, question or answer?
It's a question, please, James.
Carry on, Andy.
How are bus route numbers determined?
He's a man
London-centric.
It's a man after my own heart. It's not London-centric. There's bus routes everywhere, mate. You should get out of town a bit more often.
There are bus routes all over the world in LBC land. And I want to understand why, for example, the 113, I believe, goes from Edgware to Marble.
Take your time. I love this. It's not a motoring question, Keith. It's a logistics question. Fill your boots, Andy, and take your time. I love this stuff. It's like honey in my ears. One more. Go on, carry on.
Indeed. We don't agree on much, James, but I think we agree on...
Don't spoil it by saying that, because it makes you sound like a racist. Seriously, and we all know that you're not. You've just got legitimate concerns. But anyway, on you go with the bus routes.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the 113, I believe, goes from Edgware. I think it's Edgware to Marble Arch.
How can it? Why 113? Why 113? I mean, even in the days before, the routes were all operated by different operators in some parts of the world. How would they decide? How would they decide what was what and which was which?
Yes, and when I recall visiting Birmingham and Manchester and up in Scotland, and some of them are prefixed with letters, which possibly could add to the
confusion,
resolve it, or add to the confusion.
What is your favourite bus route? This is a phone-in they won't let me do, but what is your favourite? We nearly did it once. What's your favourite bus route?
I'm not a huge bus user.
What are you asking this question for then?
Because I've always been fascinated. I like buses. I love the old Route Masters and all the rest of it, especially the ones with the AEC engines in them. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting too technical.
You do like buses, so you like the buses vehicularly, but not actually in a user's kind of way. More of a spotter, more of an enthusiast than a passenger.
It's the 88, James. Two fat ladies.
That's his favourite, is it?
Yes.
Why was he so shy about it?
Oh well, we're not up to the watershed yet.
Where did you come from? You just hopped on the footplate halfway through the conversation.
I just jumped on the bandwagon, literally. And why do your children not have shoes? That's another question.
And they do have shoes. They just need more constantly. Have you met young people these days? They can never have enough. That's a reference, of course, to why I want everyone to buy board games and books on the programme, because my kids need shoes. Lovely. Hang on. What's Andy's? What's the lady's name? I've only got Andy's name. Alexa. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on.
Don't ask me the cricket scores, for heaven's sake.
I've got an original.
She doesn't know a thing, James. She doesn't know a thing.
The world has changed, hasn't it, for you, Alexa? A hell of a lot in the last few years.
It has.
Can you sue?
And in a good way. I was either Alex, Alexis, Alexia, Alexandra.
Oh, that's nice. Everyone knows now. Everyone knows now I'm
the best assistant in the world.
I think I'll just call you Siri. 12:37 is the time. The bus routes. How do they do it? Is it just chronologically? You start with one. And when the very first bus route was one, and then two, and then two. I do not know, but I love that quote. I love buses. I can bore for Britain on buses. Did we do it, Keith, or did Eleanor forbid me from doing it? We were really close, weren't we? She's off at the moment. You could. Would Elliot let me do what's your favourite bus route? Soften them up a bit, Keith. So tune in at 12 tomorrow to see if we've managed to get what's your favourite bus route past Elliot. And the fact that Eleanor is off this week, and also that we've had a bit of a personnel change on the programme in recent weeks, may explain why a few of you are complaining about repetition. We've had a couple of these before. I think you're exaggerating a bit, Matt, when you say we've had every single one. And also, that's not how you spell déjà vu, clever clogs. But if you can't remember the answer and I can't remember the answer, then it counts as a question. Obviously, the much missed, because he's busier these days than he was when he used to ring in all the time, Professor Howell was the original answerer of the sweat question and the hot drink question. And that's a mark of how Mystery Hour makes you a better person, because I remembered it and provided the answer. 12:38 is the time. Miranda is in Maiden Newton in Dorset. Miranda, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
Okay, so this is the question of whether lip readers can understand accents or understand where you're from. When I went to drama school, we learned how to do accents, and we were told that there's certain tensions in the mouth that will produce these accents. I can remember two. So one is Cockney. If you don't move your top lip, you automatically speak Cockney.
If you don't move your top lip, you'll automatically speak... I sound like Michael Caine. That's extraordinary. So you don't move your top lip?
Don't move your top lip.
I like that. Yeah, go on. What's the
and
other?
If you go up north, if you think Vera Duckworth, the letterbox shape on your mouth.
Hey, up, shop.
Yeah, or Wallace and Gromit, they've got those as well. So automatically you pull your lips apart as a... God, that sounds awful. Anyway, as if a letterbox shape.
Yes.
And automatically...
Well, a Scouser as well. A Scouser is... That's not far from Lancashire, is it? Well, it's not. It's in that neck of the woods, and you get a letterbox shape, and it's all going to come out like this. And you keep your top lip dead. It's very hard to keep your top lip dead still. There's often an explanation for it, isn't there? Like pollution and things like that. So there's a theory that the Birmingham accent or the Black Country accent is because there was so much disgusting fumes being pumped into the atmosphere.
Same with the tension in the top lip for the Cockneys, for the smog.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Oh, I love all that. But do you have any knowledge of whether or not this does actually translate to lip readers?
Actually, practice it when you go round a shop and look at people's faces and think, are you from London? Are you from up north?
Really?
You probably can tell.
I reckon, and I'm not even joking, that I could tell where Peter Kay was from before he started talking.
Quite.
So I don't know what that means. There's just certain physiognomies that seem to and there's probably a relationship. I don't know. I love that. So yes is your answer, although you're not a lip reader.
No.
I think I'm going to give you the round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you.
So, and also we'll gloss over that other part. Ricky's in Hampstead in North London. Ricky, question or answer?
Question for you, please, James.
Carry on, Ricky.
Who's Bob and how come he's my uncle?
This is I mean, come on, lads. Honestly, we're putting that through? I mean, we must have... I mean, no offence, mate, but we must have done this about 417 times. Even I could... Well, probably... Can you remember the answer, Keith? Were you saying we've never done it before? Everyone's had a fit of the vapours. It must be the hot weather. I can't remember...
No, it's you, James. You're just going delusional.
You might
not
be.
Anyone else.
No, you're probably right, actually. If you think everyone else is mad, chances are it's you. Where's that George Orwell quote when you need it? So who is Bob and why is he my uncle? I do know this, and I'm only trying
come on.
Calm down. You can't badger me because I'm trying to just create a low-level banter in the background while my brain goes into a different part and comes up with the answer to Bob's your Bob. It's not Bob's your Uncle Bob. No, I've got nothing. It's on the board, which is outrageous, frankly. I'll tell you.
No, it's not.
Well,
it's a good one.
I'll tell you who's not getting the game this week, Ricky. It's 12:41. It's the time. Hannah is in Northampton. Hannah, question or answer?
It is a question.
Yeah.
So my question is, if we all have these horrible little mites on our eyelashes, where do they come from?
Oh, why are you doing it?
It's going to make your eyes all tickly.
Yeah, well, also, some people are eating. Are you sure that we all have horrible little mites on our eyelashes? Is it a permanent state of affairs for everybody?
Well, this is what I've heard, but
okay.
I remember being told by a teacher once, like years and years ago, to stop us from sharing mascara, and then I've heard it ever since, but always forgotten to find out what the answer is.
Oh, and here we are. What an honour. So what's the question? Where do they come from in the first place?
Yeah, are we born with them, or how do they find our eyes? Why do they just live on our eyes and not our head, if that's the case?
I think they might live in other oil glands and follicles, but I'm not 100% sure. You asked the question. You can't go all squeamish now, Hannah.
Oh, I know. It's horrible, isn't it, though?
It's not really. We need to be a bit more grown up about these things. So it's not, obviously... So eyelash mites, where do they come from?
Where do they come from?
Where do they come from? It's a bit... I mean, where do fleas come from? Where does anything come from? Where do nits come from? Where does any parasite come from? They just... They exist and then they find a host and they hop on and Bob's your uncle. Boom! Oh, dear. Thank you, Hannah. 12:43 is the time. I've got some phone lines free and I've got lots of questions that need answering. And frankly, you can't simultaneously complain that we've done them all before and not ring in with the answer that you can remember from last time. That's my job. Mosquitoes, blood alcohol. Is there a relation? Does a mosquito get drunk when it drinks your blood when you've had a skinful? We've done the lip reading. That was a lovely answer from Miranda. If two identical twins get married to different people and have children, will the children be more than cousins? Will they be somehow in between cousins and siblings? I like that question. We've done the cars. Good answer from Bao. Why are the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet so immune to sun tanning? How do bus routes get allocated? Who's Bob? And whose uncle was he originally? And eyelash mites. What's that all about? James is in Oxford. James, hang on. 0345 606 0973 is the number you need. Hit the numbers now, you will get through. And listen, the game's still up for grabs. At the moment, I think that Dean and his mum are in the lead. Dean and Brenda are just in the lead, but it's anybody's. It's anybody's game at this point in proceedings. James is in Oxford. James, question or answer? Sorry, am I interrupting something?
No. It's the answer. It's the answer for the mosquito thing.
Carry on.
So shamefully, unlucky for us, the mosquitoes will not get drunk, no matter the amount of an alcohol we're going to actually drink, because the actual content will be still pretty low to start any effect. And besides, the mosquito has a kind of several enzymes which the drop of blood is digested straight away, and one of the enzymes is decomposing the alcohol as well, aside from the blood content. So that's that before it gets to the nervous system. So unfortunately for us, that they will not have any effect whatsoever. As a matter of fact, when we drink a lot, then we're becoming a better target for them, easier to be spotted, because the mosquitoes are using a thermosensory stimulus, and so they don't feel, obviously they don't have an eyes like human beings, but they sense the changes in temperature. So if we drink a lot and then we're getting hot, flushed in the face, we're becoming automatically better target.
Really? So the mosquito is drawn to the warmth?
Yes,
I suppose it is, because it's drawn to warm-blooded creatures, isn't it? In a certain degrees, obviously, because otherwise you would say why the mosquito is not flowing to the open fire. They sensing only the interval of the temperatures. Wow.
They develop this sense pretty smoothly as we develop our eyesight, because this is one of the main things they use for orientation now.
Wonderful. What an extraordinary answer. What a beautiful answer. What are your qualifications?
I'm a medical doctor, and I have a degree in biology as well.
That'll do nicely. That doesn't necessarily explain why you'd know about mosquito enzymes, does it? Would you study that in the course of your study?
I'm just too curious brain, to be fair. My brain doesn't rest.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Where are you from originally, if you don't mind me asking, James?
I'm from Orpington, and original name is Jarek. I used the previous name, James.
I was about to pick you up on. I was about to say, why did you say... Cause you did,
no, you didn't.
No, I didn't. But I think that's why you paused a bit when you came on, and I said James, and you thought, hang on a minute, he means me.
Exactly.
Yes, there you go. You see, that's my curious brain going into overdrive at the beginning of this conversation. Round of applause for Jarek. James.
Thank you kindly, James.
Thank you, Jarek.
You're a great presenter.
Yeah, well, you're a great caller. I love you, man. Take care. It's 12:46.
James O'Brien on LBC.
That sounds good. Ooh, Keith, make a note. What's it called? Full Disclosure with James O'Brien. That sounds fun. Crikey, all sorts of superstars on there. Some good ones coming up as well. This week's Russell T Davies, which is a particular treat, because his new show Tiptoe is absolutely extraordinary on Channel 4. Started on Sunday. Mystery Hour is underway, which is also a podcast, actually, while we're talking about Global Player. We put it up every week as a separate, self-contained little podcast. It's wonderful for long journeys, and it's something that all the family can enjoy. But this one's going to end a bit early unless I get a few more answers on the board than I've currently got. So the questions that still need answers are... Actually, we've done the mosquito. We've done quite a few, haven't we? Where do eyelash mites come from? What is the origin of the phrase "Bob's your uncle"? How are bus routes allocated? Why do the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet not tan in the sunshine? And what happens... What is the genetic relationship between the children of identical twins? That works, doesn't it? So if you can answer any of those, 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. 10 minutes to 1 is the time. Francesca is in Sutton. Francesca, question or answer?
Answer, please, James.
Carry on, Francesca.
I just wanted to answer the question regarding DNA and how similar cousins are versus children of twins.
Go on.
I just wanted to say that basically when a mother and father have a child, that child shares 50% of the DNA from the mother, 50% from the father. So when they have a sibling, they will share 50% of the DNA with that sibling.
Yeah.
We recombine all DNA in sperm and in eggs just to make things as healthy as possible. Diversity is as healthy as possible. But
don't say that. Don't say that. You sound like you hate white people. Oh, that's gone over your head, hasn't it? So diversity is good, you said. You're not allowed to say that this week.
DNA.
Go on, yes.
Of human beings. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one.
No, that's all right. I think, have you got your radio on in the background?
No.
Okay, it's just me that's confusing you. I'll shut up then.
Never.
You carry on.
Yeah, so siblings share 50% of the DNA. Cousins share 25% of the DNA because Obviously,
Yes.
you're 1 degree away.
Yes.
But if you have identical twins, they do not share 50% of their DNA. They share 100% of their DNA
There
because
it
they
is.
are identical.
Yeah. So the children, the two cousins, technically, legally, they're cousins. Genetically, they're
Legally.
half siblings.
It's just siblings.
No,
Fully siblings.
because it's not 2 sets of identical twins. It's only 1 set of identical twins.
Okay, so the mums are identical twins, but
Correct.
the dads aren't.
Correct.
Yes,
So they would be half siblings
they would be half siblings. They would
genetically, but cousins legally.
be
technically.
legally.
Wow. And if it was 2
Yeah.
sets of identical
It's just
twins, they'd
about-
be full siblings. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference from their DNA about whose was whose.
Well, this is the wonderful thing about DNA, is that it's always recombined and it's always produced in the healthiest pattern you can through that diversity. But if you're talking about the solid block of DNA that they share, not that they express, but that they share, you're talking about half siblings.
Love it. Qualifications?
I've just got a degree in genetics.
I don't think I've just got a degree in genetics. Do you know, no man would have done that. A man would have
You
just
know,
gone, I've got a
I've
degree in
met
genetics. I've got a
Punjabi
degree in genetics. But you say, well, that's the best possible qualification for the question that you've just answered.
No, but all my siblings are dentists, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, it matters to
I'm
me.
joking.
It matters to me, Francesca. Have a round of applause. There you go. None of them have got one of those, have they?
No.
That's it. That one goes off the list, Francesca. Got the twins question. Akan is in Sheffield. Akan, question or answer?
I've got answer. I'm going to try to answer one of your questions about the tanning one.
Top man.
Yeah, so first time caller, yeah, lovely show, love you.
You're very kind. Love you too.
So essentially, we've got melanocytes everywhere. We've got in every part of our skin. And most especially, we've also got it in our palm.
Melanocytes, as in sort of melanin.
Yeah, exactly. So
Producers.
this melanocyte,
Yes.
what it does is it produces melanin.
Got it.
Which is responsible for giving us skin color. And it's kind of like our body's own defense mechanism against ultraviolet light.
Yes.
So everyone, irrespective of race or ethnicity, they've got exactly the same amount of melanin on average. The thing is...
Really?
Every people, like take for example, people from West Africa and people from the north of England, the difference is mainly in terms of the activity of this melanocyte. Now, when they tan, they essentially produce more melanin, which then protects us from this ultraviolet light. But if you look at the melanocytes that are in the palms, the palm and the soles have much more thicker skin. So this ultraviolet light doesn't actually penetrate deep to reach this melanocyte.
Yes.
And in terms of the distribution and the density of this melanocyte, the palms and the soles, they have a reduced number, hence having like a reduced density of this melanocyte there. So when you combine all of these factors, it's essentially not going to tan because the sunlight or the ultraviolet light is not reaching it in the first place, and it's not even reaching enough of those melanocytes. And based on wherever your ethnicity is from, the activity of this melanocyte already differs in the first place. And when you combine all of these factors, you get that result.
That's a perfectly comprehensive answer. I've only got one quibble.
Yeah.
What sort of light is it?
So light itself has like...
No, light. What is the light called that stimulates...
Ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light.
Ultra what?
Ultraviolet light.
Violet. Because it sounded like you're saying ultraviolet light for quite a long part.
No, absolutely not.
I thought we've had enough of that this week. So that's a perfect answer. What are your qualifications, Akan?
I'm a pediatric doctor.
Well, that'll do nicely. I said, well, then you probably would know the difference between ultraviolet light and ultraviolet light. My first band was... No, don't even do it. Here's a round of applause for you, Akan.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. What a brilliant debut. What a lovely mystery hour. Who's going to win the game? Donna Maria's in Watch It. It's not called Watch It.
It is.
What, like Watch It? Gov.
Watch it, as in watch it.
In Somerset, Watch It.
Yeah.
Watch
yeah,
it, Donna Marie. Watch it. Carry on. Question or answer?
It's an answer.
Watch it, Keith. Yes, carry on.
It's about the eyelash mites.
Oh, yes.
So, on your body, you have something called Demodex mites.
No,
and
I
they
don't.
Predominantly,
How dare you?
You do.
Watch it, Donna Marie. I do not.
And if there is an overgrowth on your face, the little devils...
That's not an overgrowth, that's a beard.
If there's an overgrowth of these mites on your face,
Yeah.
they then kind of like travel upwards and decide that they want pastures new, so they go and seek out your eyelashes.
Now, if you don't get on top of them and they continue to grow in your eyelashes, in the little glands, it can result in a condition called blepharitis, which is really nasty.
Blimey.
And so it's an overgrowth of Demodex mites.
Demodex. How do you get rid of them?
Well, you have to have a regime of kind of like helping to bleed the glands, as in, because your eyelids are made up, well, you've got tear ducts and you've got medium glands that produce the oil that keep the tears on your eyes.
Ah.
Yeah, and so you have to kind of like steam those, make it nice and warm, bleed it to make sure that you're actually getting the oil into your eyes, which stops the dry eye. But it actually also helps to kill off the Demodex mites as well.
This is a superbly comprehensive answer. What are your qualifications, Donna Marie?
I have been suffering with blepharitis on and off for 20 years.
Flipping it, blepharitis.
Blepharitis.
Blepharitis. All right, watch it. Blepharitis. Do you see where she's calling from, Sheila?
I can hear.
No, not the accent. The town she's in Somerset. Watch it. Watch it, Sheila.
It's called Watch It.
Watch it.
It's called Watch It.
I thought she was calling from Liverpool.
No, she's obviously been to Liverpool at some point, I would suggest, but she's not there now. Watch it with your presumptions like that. Round of applause for Donna Marie.
Thank you.
No, thank you. That's it, we're done. If you missed any of today, well, who's going to... Brenda. What?
I think Francesca should have it. Do you know why?
Why?
When she said all my siblings are dentists.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Brenda. Sheila Fogarty has just snatched that game
Brenda.
Out of your grasp. No, you're right. We'll give it to Francesca.
I've got lots of siblings, as you know, and they don't mean to do it, but they can sometimes put you in your box without really meaning to.
There was a plaintive note.
You're only that. You're only
a
this.
gob on a stick.
Yeah.
I'm a public servant of some repute.
And I had an aunt once who said to me and my midwife sister at a family event, I know she was a distant cousin, not an aunt. She said, so which one of you is the midwife and which one of you is the one that talks for a living? So I pretended to be a midwife.
I hope she wasn't pregnant. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you can also stay up to date with all the latest news, videos and opinions. You can listen to a range of podcasts, including James O'Brien Daily, the best bits from my LBC show every day. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 4 on LBC, it's Tom Swarbrick, but now it's Midwife Hour with Sheila Fogarty.
I'll be delivering your babies between now and 4 o'clock.
James O'Brien on LBC.